An explosive sound rang out, and a blade swung at the sound, only to land on nothing but air. The next moment, the runes in the sky shattered. It's a spy formation. It's over. She saw me. Luo Qingyang's voice quivered. He was completely terrified. He hated Long Chen. He hated Long Chen for taking the person he loved most. He hated Long Chen to an extent that could no longer be described with words. Luo Bing had been growing more and more distant from him, not letting him see any hope. In his mind, this was all caused by Long Chen. Just a few days before entering the Jiuli Immortal land, Chunyang had secretly gone to see Luo Qingyang. He gave Luo Qingyang some enticing conditions so that he would help him eliminate Long Chen. In order to eliminate Long Chen, Luo Qingyang actually agreed. However, he had two conditions. One was to not harm the people from the Luo family, and the other was to keep it absolutely secret. Chunyang swore on his soul to agree to his conditions. But Luo Qingyang hadn't expected that Chunyang would use other people to kill Long Chen. Despite that, he still used the Luo family's secret art to help them track down Long Chen. But he hadn't expected Luo Bing to learn what he was doing. Now he was panicked out of his wits. He had originally wanted to form a good relationship with Luo Bing after Long Chen was dead. In the future, they would face Chunyang together, and that wouldn't count as betraying the family. However, his actions had been discovered by Luo Bing, and this left him dumbfounded. Continue chasing. The towering man snorted. His voice was like a beast's, and he led people after Long Chen's tracks. As for Luo Qingyang, he was ashen and lifeless, being dragged along by the others. Luo Qingyang. Luo Bing gritted her teeth and clenched her fists. Her nails dug into her palm until it bled, but she didn't feel it. Although she was mentally prepared, seeing Luo Qingyang through the spying formation still caused her anger to explode. She was unable to accept such a betrayal. It wasn't just Luo Bing who was enraged. All the Luo family's disciples were furious. The Luo family cared immensely for the family's glory and reputation, and they would not allow such a thing to occur. "Let's kill Luo Qingyang and clean up our family status," said one of the Luo disciples. "Long Chen, are you able to hold up that large fellow?" asked Luo Bing. There was a pleading light in her eyes. As a disciple of the Luo family, cleaning up traitors from their family was a must. Long Chen shook his head. "Those are experts from the Golden Bell Gate. That person should be their #1 expert, Zhao Wujing, known as the Glowering Vajra. He gave me a sense of immense pressure. Right now, there are some problems with my body, and I'm not confident in being able to beat him. Even if I manage to stall him, there are no fewer than 10 people in their group on the level of you and Qingyun. If we go, even if you can kill Luo Qingyang, at most, only 4 people on our side will survive." That large fellow was definitely the #1 expert of the Golden Bell Gate. He was said to possess limitless power, and his body couldn't be damaged by blades or spears. Within the same realm, he had never encountered a match for himself. His fame was resounding. He was the one who gave Long Chen the greatest sense of danger. Based on his calculations, this person's power should be on the same level as Bai Shishir. Hearing this, the others sucked in a cold gasp of air. If Zhao Wujing was so powerful, then fine. But there were at least 10 experts as strong as Luo Bing and Mu Qingyun in their group? That was absolutely terrifying. Luo Bing and Mu Qingyun had only gotten a quick glance through the formation, but they could still sense Zhao Wujing's terrifying aura. However, they hadn't expected there to be so many other powerful experts in their group. "Brother San, there's something wrong with your body?" asked Mu Qingyun worriedly. The others also looked at him. Long Chen waved his hand. "This problem is related to the merger of the 7 Supreme Yang technique and the Starry River of the Sky Art. It's not important." Long Chen had cultivated the 7 Supreme Yang technique and Starry River of the Sky Art in order to cover up the 9-star Hegemon body art. The fact that he had merged the two had shaken the entire High Firmament Academy. The actual problem, though, was that his Divine Flame realm was different from other people's Divine Flame realm. He had 108,000 Divine Flames and was still unable to control such terrifying power. He hadn't expected the power of his 108,000 stars to grow so much. It was too overbearing. When he tried to use it, it almost blew him up. Right now, he was like a titan with a giant sledgehammer smashing walnuts. One mistake and his hammer would strike nothing. Since he had no master to guide him, he could only rely on himself to test out how to use the power of the divine flame realm. He was still getting used to this new power and was unable to reach the level of full control down to the smallest detail. Hence, he didn't dare to raise his cultivation base any higher in this state. If he couldn't even control a 1-ton hammer, he definitely wouldn't be able to handle a 2-ton hammer. During this period, he had been constantly testing the power of his divine flames. He had an initial control over them, and that was naturally enough to handle ordinary experts. However, against an expert like Zhao Wujing, he would definitely need to use his full power. But that would be too difficult. Without absolute control, he was worried he wouldn't be able to handle it himself. "Then what are we supposed to do now?" asked Luo Ning. "Aren't we doing it right now?" Long Chen smiled. They were currently rushing around randomly, suddenly going left and then right. After passing a large mountain, another group of experts appeared without warning. "Kill them all." Long Chen gave the order. Luo Bing, Luo Ning, Mu Qingyun, and the others immediately attacked. With their previous experience, they understood just how important it was to grasp the initiative. They immediately launched sharp attacks. Those experts were caught off guard, as Long Chen and the others had appeared out of nowhere. By the time they collected themselves, Luo Bing and Mu Qingyun had started a slaughter. Boom. However, one expert managed to hold Luo Bing back. That person held a spear in his left hand and a shield in his right hand. Both the spear and shield looked as if they were made of gold. Runes flowed over them, and they possessed a shockingly heavy air. Luo Bing was actually at a slight disadvantage. Luo Ning was shocked. This person's reaction speed was very quick, and his power was shocking. That heavy earth aura meant that he was an earth cultivator. Die! His spear shook, and the land quivered. An immense power unfurled. All of a sudden, golden light shot out of his spear, and it stabbed forward with an ear-piercing boom. Luo Bing was shocked. She hadn't expected this person to be so powerful. He was another person disguising themselves as a pig to eat the tiger. Furthermore, his reaction speed was incredible. Even with such a large move, he didn't need to spend much time accumulating power. Luo Ning rushed over, about to work together with her big sister to handle this person, when a black-robed figure appeared in front of them. Long Chen reached out a hand covered in dragon scales. There seemed to be flames ignited, and just like that, he caught the golden spear. After grabbing it, he shoved it back. The spear quivered and slammed into the chest of the wielder, blasting him apart. After he was slain, the remaining experts lost their ability to resist. In just a few breaths' time, over 500 people were killed. Once they were killed, Luo Bing and Mu Qingyun led everyone away without pause. But Long Chen stayed behind. He sat on a stone, waiting patiently. Very quickly, he heard a lot of footsteps and smiled. A large figure was reflected in his eyes. The number 1 expert of the Golden Bell Gate, Zhao Wujing, appeared before him. Seeing Zhao Wujing's body, Long Chen suddenly thought of Wild. Wild was even bigger than this guy, but Long Chen didn't know where he was right now. Amongst everyone, he was most worried about that foolish oaf. Long Chen. Zhao Wujing was leading a group of over 200 people. Luo Chunyang instantly shouted in delight when he saw Long Chen. Kill him, kill him. Other than Bai Shishir and Su Changchuan, he's the strongest expert of the High Firmament Academy, shouted Luo Chunyang. Zhao Wujing looked at Long Chen and frowned. Long Chen's cultivation base was at the initial divine flame realm, and he hadn't even reached the first heaven stage. Moreover, he looked weak and was wearing tattered black robes. Those clothes even had patches covering them. At this moment, he was lazily sitting on a rock, chewing a stalk of grass. He looked more like a beggar than some supreme expert. "You are Long Chen?" asked Zhao Wujing coldly. Long Chen didn't reply. Instead, he looked at Luo Chunyang with a hint of pity in his eyes. "You weren't stupid before, but your emotions have clouded your vision. My relationship with Luo Bing is completely clear and innocent, and I even expressed my own position to you. But you continued to make things hard on me and pushed yourself into opposing Luo Bing. Now you don't even mind betraying your own family and putting your family's people in danger. Although I feel like you're pitiful, you've really touched the bottom line of a person. Sorry, but I cannot forgive you. What bullshit? You're the one who seduced Luo Bing. She and I were childhood sweethearts, and she only grew astray because of you. Shouted Luo Chunyang furiously. Long Chen sighed. Since you're childhood sweethearts, you should understand Luo Bing's character. In her heart, the family's prosperity and glory are above any personal romantic feelings. The family is even more important than her own life in her eyes. If you really loved her, you would not do such a thing to harm her. True love is given, not demanded. Your love for her is simply demanding to obtain her, but not protect her or devote yourself wholeheartedly to support her. Well, fine. I'll give you a chance. Go back with me and apologize to Luo Bing. This is your last chance. I hope that you will grasp it. Haha. Luo Chunyang laughed. Are you an idiot? Acting like some gentleman. All I want right now is for you to die. Do you think I can go back now? Luo Bing already knows. I can't go back. If you really want to give me a chance, then you'll kill yourself. I already gave you a chance. Don't blame me. Long Chen sighed. He suddenly shot forward like a bolt of lightning at Luo Chunyang. Brat, don't be impudent. Zhao Wujing roared. Long Chen had ignored him when speaking to Luo Chunyang, treating him as nothing more than empty air. Zhao Wujing then stepped forward, unleashing a punch. This one punch sealed the entire space up and down, left and right. Although it appeared to be a simple punch, it clearly showed his immense combat experience. Long Chen's palm smashed into his fist, and he instantly felt an immense power pass through. This fist's power was condensed perfectly and only erupted at the moment of contact. His power was truly immense. But when the fist landed, Zhao Wujing suddenly found that all his power seemed to have landed on a pile of cotton. His arm was drawn in. By the time he reacted, Long Chen had slipped past him and appeared in front of Luo Chunyang. Luo Chunyang was shocked, not expecting Zhao Wujing to be unable to stop Long Chen. He hastily retreated, and the two experts beside him also defended him. Boom! With a single punch, Long Chen blasted those two experts away. They let out muffled grunts. No! Luo Chunyang hastily retreated, but he found that even with so many people around him, no one could help him. He then saw Long Chen's icy eyes get closer and closer. The next moment, a palm landed on his body. Bang! Luo Chunyang's body shuddered for a moment before stiffening. The light in his eyes faded. I gave you a chance, but you didn't grasp it. Long Chen shook his head. Although he disliked Luo Chunyang, in the end, the latter was just an infatuated fool. But to use Luo Bing's words, anyone who betrayed the family had to be executed. Even then, Long Chen had made an attempt to save Luo Chunyang's life. If he admitted his mistake to Luo Bing, Long Chen could take responsibility for this. Although the Luo family would punish Luo Chunyang, they wouldn't execute him. Regretfully, his hatred for Long Chen had reached such a level that he only wanted him dead. All Long Chen could do for him was leave him with an intact corpse. He then put away his corpse. But suddenly he felt the world tremble and the land sink. A roar rang out like a god's shout as Zhao Wujing leaped into the air, his blood qi erupting. Long Chen die. Zhao Wujing was infuriated. Luo Chunyang was just a traitor of the academy and unimportant to him, so he didn't care that Luo Chunyang died. However, since Long Chen could kill Luo Chunyang despite him trying to prevent it, that was a slap in his face. Those Golden Bell Gate experts instantly fled when they saw Zhao Wujing's current state. Those familiar with him knew that they couldn't stick around. You think you can kill me? Long Chen sneered and he rolled up his sleeve. Dragon scales covered his fist. Boom. As their fists smashed together, the mountain beneath them instantly collapsed. Powerful astral winds destroyed the surroundings, and those disciples that fled were struck and coughed up blood. They were sent flying to unknown places. A giant mushroom-shaped cloud of dust exploded, spreading in every direction. In the distance, Luo Bing and the others watched as it bloomed. They were pale with fright. This kind of power had surpassed their current comprehension. Brother Singh, he'll be all right, right? Asked Mu Qingyan. Luo Bing and Luo Ning were also stunned. Zhao Wujing was definitely a monster. If something happened to Long Qin, there would be no recovery from it. For the family's glory, they had to kill Luo Chunyang, but they were unable to do so. Unable to bear seeing them in such a state, Long Qin made this move to help them clean up their family. Before this, Long Qin had said that he wasn't a match for Zhao Wujing. Seeing this terrifying sight, they couldn't help feeling worried and regretful. That fellow really is a tough one. Just as they were getting worried, Long Qin descended from the sky, relieving everyone. "Brother San, you're injured?" exclaimed Mu Qingyun when she saw Long Qin's bloody arm. "Let's get going." Long Qin waved his hand. Luo Bing and the others hastily followed him. "Don't worry. We are both injured. He still doesn't know what the situation is on our side, so it's not likely that he'll chase," said Long Qin. In that exchange, Long Qin had broken his arm, but Zhao Wujing also coughed up blood and had his internal organs shaken. That was an even exchange. Long Qin had made everyone leave in order to prevent the other powers from learning more information about them. If another group came over led by an expert like Zhao Wujing, then it would be far more troublesome. Zhao Wujing is truly terrifying. No wonder he is said to be the #1 expert of the Golden Bell Gates junior generation, said a guild leader. Although they had been very far, they could witness the aftermath of their exchange clearly. One punch shattered a mountain range. Just how monstrous was that? An expert on that level wasn't someone that they could beat even if they sacrificed all their lives. That was no longer an existence that could be killed through quantity. Boss San is also mighty to be able to injure such an existence. You can be counted amongst their ranks, said another disciple. Just now, they had borne witness to the power of a peak heavenly genius. Although they had all heard that Bai Shishir's power was immense, she rarely revealed herself in the academy, so they didn't have a chance to see her power. On the other hand, Long Qin had killed expert after entering the Jiuli Immortal land. He had even forced Chunyang to the extent that the latter didn't even have a chance to fight back. However, that could be said to be partially multiple coincidences lining up. This time, it was just a simple exchange, and that destructive exchange had shown them what absolute power was. They rejoiced inside that they were following Long Qin. If he hadn't warned everyone, they wouldn't even have a chance to get away if they encountered a group like that. "Boss, is Zhao Wujing really so powerful?" asked Bai Xiaola, unconvinced. In his heart, no one could win against Long Qin. He truly is powerful. He has 2 kinds of bloodlines in his body. It should be considered a mutated bloodline, said Long Qin. Although it was just a brief exchange, Long Qin had gotten a general understanding of Zhao Wujing's power. That explosive aura of his was not the aura of the human race. Either he had some other race's blood within him, or he had later merged with some terrifying bloodline. "Is he as strong as Bai Shishir?" asked Bai Xiaola. "In pure destructive power, he should be 1 level stronger than Bai Shishir," said Long Qin after some thought. "Even Fairy Shishir isn't a match for him?" Everyone was startled. Long Qin shook his head. Pure destructive power is not everything. If it was a 1 against 1, he wouldn't be able to beat Bai Shishir. Hearing that, they felt a bit more at ease. Bai Shishir was the Academy's #1 disciple. As long as she remained undefeated, there was still hope for the Academy. "Boss, what about you and Bai Shishir? Who is stronger?" asked Bai Xiaola. "Does asking such things have the slightest meaning?" retorted Long Qin. When this fellow was beaten, he seemed to smarten up a little. Now his head was off again. "Hee, Bai Shishir looks down on men. If you could beat her, you could make her a bed warmer, make her bring you tea, wash your clothes, hee. Think about how great that would be," exclaimed Bai Xiaola. Everyone couldn't help gasping. This fellow's head really wasn't normal. Ignoring how he was encouraging Long Qin to win Bai Shishir, with her talent and status, who would dare use her as a bed warmer? Long Qin rolled his eyes, speechless. This brother and sister were both oddities. He spat out, "I'm not a match for her, so don't think about this any longer." Hearing that, Bai Xiaola deflated. Then is she going to get what she wants for the rest of her life? Luo Bing and the others shook their heads. Just how great an enmity did this child have with Bai Shishir? After 6 hours of travel, they found a secluded place to rest. Long Chen then took out Luo Chunyang's corpse. "Sorry. I tried my best." Luo Bing shook her head. "You gave him a chance, so he could only blame himself. But even if he took that chance, regretting it at that time was too late. The Luo family would not spare him." Seeing Luo Chunyang's corpse, Luo Bing wasn't even aware of it, but she began to cry. This was a person she had grown up with, someone she had viewed as a big brother. Now, he had been turned into a lifeless corpse. Although she hated him, she couldn't feel that hatred now that she saw his corpse. The other disciples of the Luo family also cried. Even though they had previously felt overwhelming hatred for him when they learned of his betrayal, his current state aggrieved them. After a bit, they placed his corpse at the center. They began a ceremony, walking around his corpse 3 times and murmuring something. After that, Luo Ning unleashed a flame that burned his corpse to ash. Those ashes were then scattered in a nearby river. According to Luo Ning, Luo Chunyang was a traitor of the Luo family, a disgrace. His corpse could not be buried in the family grave, and his soul could not enter the memorial tablet. He had to be turned to ash and sent through a river to wash away his disgrace. Seeing how strict the Luo family was with its rites, the disciples' hearts shook. No wonder the Luo family was so powerful, and its disciples were so united. After resting a bit, Long Chen's wounds healed, and the disciples who had gone through 2 large battles also recovered. Luo Bing said that using a secret art of the family, she had checked Luo Chunyang's spiritual memories. She had learned that the Luo Alliance's disciples were hidden in a certain location. As a result, they went over to gather with them, only to find that this hidden cave only had broken corpses inside. Luo Bing and the other disciples of the Luo family cried out in grief. It was Chunyang. Long Chen checked the battlefield and found that this was done by one person. Chunyang's bloodline aura still hung in the air. Luo Chunyang deserves 10,000 deaths. Luo Ning's eyes reddened. Any grief she had felt for Luo Chunyang vanished without a trace. Seeing how all these disciples of the Luo family had been killed because of his foolishness, she had an urge to gather his ashes and pulverize them again. Clearly, Luo Chunyang had been tricked by Chunyang. When he went to lead the way for Zhao Wujing, Chunyang snuck in here and killed the Luo family's disciples. Luo Bing knelt on the ground and wept. There were many senior apprentice brothers and sisters here that she knew. Many of them had even looked after her, but they were now dead because of Luo Chunyang's foolishness. After letting her cry for a while, Long Chen consoled her, "We have no time for grief right now. What we need to do is get revenge for them. We can't let them die for nothing." If the Luo family's disciples died on the battlefield, then they would simply be weaker than their opponents and there would be nothing to say. But these people died for nothing. Luo Ning wept, and even she felt like she was about to collapse. Long Chen sighed. He had previously pitied Luo Chunyang, but his foolishness had killed so many innocent people. Luo Bing's crying only grew worse and worse. Eventually, Long Chen placed a hand on the back of Luo Bing's head, causing her to fall unconscious. If she continued to blame herself and feel worse, it might form a heart devil. Luo Ning, look after her. The other disciples of the Luo family, gather the corpses of these warriors. We still have many things to do. If you want them to be able to smile in the 9 springs, then kill Chunyang as vengeance for them. After gathering the corpses, with heavy hearts, everyone continued deeper into the Jiuli Immortal land. The next day, Long Chen suddenly led everyone to a desolate land. An hour later, they saw a battlefield. Bai Shishir fought with people here. A massive area of destruction was present within a winding mountain range. Within the dirt were some golden fragments that looked like a layer of golden powder. These golden fragments were something that Long Chen had seen before. They were Bai Shishir's metal energy. She could draw out the metal energy of the land, but that metal energy could only be used by her, not absorbed. Thus, after the battle, that pure metal energy sank back into the land, while these little fragments simply dispersed. A terrifying pressure remained on the battlefield. Ordinary people would feel like their skin was being stabbed just by getting close. Once they approached the core of the battlefield, a portion of these people were unable to endure it and had to pause. Any further and they would be injured. They were shocked inside. Was this the true power of peak experts? They didn't even have the power to set foot on their battlefield. Long Chen then brought Luo Bing, Luo Ning, Mu Qingyun, and the others into the core of the battlefield. He picked up a fist-sized lump of gold, and it immediately fell apart into golden sand. This battle occurred 3 days ago, and the opponent was an earth element expert. The metal energy here isn't pure. It's mixed with sand. The other side came prepared specifically to counter Bai Shishir, said Long Chen gravely. Then isn't Bai Shishir in danger? Asked Luo Ning. No. All the blood belongs to the other side. The Heaven-Female Alliance wasn't harmed. Most likely, Bai Shishir sensed the opponents and sent the Heaven-Female Alliance away first so that she could face them alone. In this battle, the metal energy suppressed the earth energy. Clearly, the one to suffer was not Bai Shishir, said Long Chen. Hearing this, Luo Bing and the others were relieved. Bai Shishir was truly worthy of being the High Firmament Academy's #1 expert. On her own, she had managed to drive off their enemies. Amongst the people we know of, only the 9 Cauldron Church's #1 expert is a terrifying earth cultivator. It seems that he's the one chasing her down, said Luo Bing. The impact of Luo Qingyang and the Luo Alliance's disciples' deaths had been a large blow to her, but she suppressed that grief for now. That seems to be the case. The 9 Cauldron Church's master is also an earth cultivator, with many earth cultivators in their sect. Lu Chunyang is their #1 expert of the junior generation. Only he would dare to chase after her. But he clearly overestimated himself and underestimated Bai Shishir. If my guess is correct, if it weren't for their numbers, Bai Shishir might have managed to slay Lu Chunyang, said Long Chen. Everyone nodded. With Bai Shishir's arrogant character, being hunted by others would be a huge provocation. She would definitely kill them. Through an investigation, the marks on the battlefield seemed to confirm Long Chen's words. There were marks of a group fleeing in a panic, and that showed that Bai Shishir had scared them off. However, she hadn't pursued them. Once her enemies ran, she also left. It was unknown if the reason was because she was worried about her subordinate's safety, so she chose not to give chase. I wonder who is stronger, Zhao Wujing or Lu Chunyang, said Luo Ning curiously. It should be Zhao Wujing. Although we only clashed with our physical power, a simple probing exchange, this fellow's foundation runs deep. He gave me a large sense of pressure, said Long Chen after a moment's thought. Hearing that, everyone felt a chill. Only a probing blow relying on pure physical power had caused such terrifying aftermath. Then what about a full power attack? Looking at this vast, ruined battlefield, these disciples felt a profound feeling of powerlessness. The power disparity was too great. What we should do right now is find Bai Shishir as fast as possible. If she is killed, we will be in even greater danger, said Long Chen. They continued rushing deeper into the Jiuli Immortal land. After finding Bai Shishir's battlefield, things became much easier. Bai Xiaola had a kind of spatial divine art to track Bai Shishir's metal energy. This was not a bloodline divine ability. Bai Shishir and Bai Xiaola only had the same father, but both of their individual bloodline divine abilities came from their mothers. Perhaps it was due to this that the two didn't feel very close. Originally, Bai Xiaola didn't want to find Bai Shishir. He encouraged Long Chen to go find Lu Chunyang. As long as he killed the latter, that would be a slap in Bai Shishir's face. If someone that Bai Shishir hadn't managed to kill was instead killed by Long Chen, that would be amazing. However, he didn't dare to go against Long Chen's orders, so he led them after Bai Shishir. On the way, Long Chen felt that things were off. Bai Shishir seemingly didn't encounter any other experts on her path. Was it that the other side was gathering their forces? Or was it that they were injured from the last clash and were recovering? After a full day and night of traveling, Long Chen suddenly sensed something. He looked in a certain direction and saw a pile of ruins. According to Bai Xiaola, Bai Shishir was in that direction as well. Long Chen led them rushing over. They saw the remains of many ancient sects on the way, but they didn't bother checking them for treasures. Bai Shishir also hadn't checked those areas on her way. She seemed to have been rushing straight here. These ruins were so damaged that there was no way to tell what they had looked like before. However, it seemed that it had once been a flourishing sect. Long Chen then led everyone carefully through these ruins. He seemed to be sensing something and was looking around as he walked. Suddenly he knelt and pushed aside a rock. The rock fell to the ground and raised a wave of dust. Behind the rock was a broken corner of a sign. The disciples quickly helped him excavate what he had found. They dug up a broken board hundreds of meters long, and there were 2 ancient immortal characters written on it. Luo Bing and the others didn't recognize it. These immortal characters were very different from the immortal characters that they had studied. Starry River. Long Chen recognized them. They were the same style as the Starry River of the sky art he had learned. Even after continuing to investigate, no one could find the complete board. Long Chen shook his head. This board was already broken. This large piece had been partially protected through time by the runes on it, but the smaller pieces had probably completely decayed. This is probably the remains of the Starry River Sage's Dao Path. Bai Shishir actually came here. They knew that Bai Shishir had come here. But this place was too big for them to pinpoint her location. Furthermore, if they could track her to here, then perhaps others could also find this place. Long Chen told everyone to suppress their auras and carefully continue searching the ruins. This place didn't seem any smaller than the High Firmament Academy. The damaged buildings and broken walls seemed to say that a large battle had occurred here. However, so much time had passed that the buildings had already eroded, making it impossible to see what they were supposed to look like, let alone find any corpses. Long Chen suddenly raised his hand, having everyone go silent. Just as they were puzzled, a flying boat suddenly appeared in the sky, and a group of people walked off. When they saw those robes, Luo Bing and the others were shocked. The Clear River Palace. Everyone lower your heads. Don't look. Long Chen suddenly sent a message to everyone. While they didn't understand, they followed his instructions. They didn't look at that flying boat. Just as they lowered their heads, a person walked off of the flying boat. It was Chunyang. Although they were extremely far from the flying boat, if Luo Bing and the other disciples of the Luo family saw him after he had just killed the Luo family's disciples, then no matter how they controlled themselves, their killing intent would flare. That would instantly expose them to Chunyang. Along with Chunyang were 2 others, one wearing the robes of the Clear River Palace, and the other wearing a black cloak. That Clear River Palace's expert was covered in mist, and the water energy of the world instantly grew lively wherever he went. He was an absolutely terrifying water cultivator. As for the one in the black cloak, he was tall and skinny, but the hood of the cloak covered most of his face. The most shocking thing was that even though he was clearly standing there and visible, it was impossible to sense any aura from him. Bloodkill Hall. Long Chen narrowed his eyes. He instantly recognized that person's status because his body had a very dense aura of a god. Perhaps others couldn't sense that aura, but it was like a lantern in the dark to Long Chen. He had fought against the Bloodkill Hall the entire time in the lower plane. If it wasn't for Enputa's pleading and Dong Mingyu being raised by them, he would have pulled out the Bloodkill Hall and crushed it down from its roots. At that time, he hadn't realized that the Bloodkill Hall was the dog of the 9 Underworld Hall. They were all Lord Brahma's subordinates. If he had known this back then, he would have completely wiped them out. However, later on, Long Chen also grew curious. If Enputa was Lord Brahma's dog, then he should have recognized Long Chen's status when they encountered each other. If that was the case, the 9 underworld hunters would have been sent after him long ago. That was something that he was still befuddled by even now. Seeing the 3 of them together, Long Chen was essentially sure who that person covered in water chi was. It was the Clear River Palace's #1 expert, Xie Tianyu. The pressure he gave Long Chen was about the same as Zhao Wujing. However, the cloaked figure didn't seem to exist in this world. He seemed to pass through it, hidden. What a terrifying assassin. He was an even greater threat than Chunyang, Zhao Wujing, or any of the others. Brother Tianyu, we've inspected the surroundings. Bai Shishir should be in this vicinity, said Chunyang. As expected, Long Chen's guess was correct. This person was the #1 expert of the Clear River Palace's junior generation. That pig Lu Chunyang. We already told him that Bai Shishir was very powerful and that we were supposed to gather before attacking her together, but he refused to listen. He even alerted her to the danger. Ignoring how Bai Shishir almost cut off his head due to his foolishness, he even exposed the spies that Brother Chu arranged. Otherwise, we wouldn't be forced to waste so much time running around like headless flies, said Xie Tianyu. His tone was not at all polite toward Lu Chunyang. In fact, he seemed infuriated with him. I also underestimated Bai Shishir. Even now, I don't know how she managed to pluck out the spies I set up. There were 3 eyes I put in the Heaven Female Alliance, and none of them knew each other's existence. But after her fight with Lu Chunyang, she managed to figure out who all of them were. That woman is not as simple as she seems, said Chunyang. Long Chen was surprised. So Bai Shishir was quite capable. After that battle, she immediately sensed something was off and eliminated the spies in her group. Just like Chunyang, Long Chen had thought her to be lacking experience and too arrogant to think of such a thing. This place is too big, so I've already told everyone to gather here. We'll shrink our encirclement. The 5 powers have over 6 million experts. Bai Shishir couldn't escape even if she grew wings, said Xie Tianyu. Bai Shishir is on guard now. Without any spies, that's all we can do. However, I still feel a bit uneasy. There's still no news from Long Chen. That fellow is crafty, so I am worried about him ruining our plan, said Chunyang. Long Chen had the High Firmament Sacred Tablet and had even killed Chu Huairan. This alarmed him a bit. Long Chen is nothing more than a lower plane ascender. Even if his talent isn't bad, he's nothing to us. Our mission is to kill Bai Shishir, and Long Chen is your own personal grievance to deal with. I don't want such a minor thing to cause this mission to fail. You should know that none of us can bear the consequences of such a thing. If we fail, the 5 powers will have no way to explain themselves to Divine Venerate Brahma. At that time, the wrath of a Divine Venerate will exterminate all of us, said Xie Tianyu seriously. Chunyang, we're all working for the Divine Venerate. I know you want to kill that little fellow. During normal times, we would definitely help you with our full power, but now we have a more important mission. This mission supersedes everything, said the cloaked expert. Junior brother understands. For you 2 big brothers, killing Bai Shishir is nothing more than raising your hand and clenching. After we kill Bai Shishir, I won't need you to fight. As long as you can help me surround Long Chen so he can't run away, I will personally kill him. Chunyang cupped his fists toward them. That will naturally be no problem. Xie Tianyu and the cloaked expert both nodded. Then many thanks. When this junior brother fights for the family head position, I hope that you can also help me out a bit. Once I become the family head, I definitely won't forget you, said Chunyang, striking while the iron was hot. The 2 of them directly agreed, delighting him. Examining their surroundings, the 3 of them set off for a secluded place and hid themselves. At this distance, Long Chen couldn't hear their words. Fortunately, he could read lips and knew the contents of what they were saying. No wonder the 5 powers would do this, so they were all dogs of Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma truly was powerful. Apparently, he controlled a third of the forces within the immortal world's 9 heavens and 10 lands. Furthermore, some of his forces were still hidden. For example, the fact that the Chu family was devoted to Lord Brahma was known to the outside world now. But the 5 powers that had entered the Jiuli immortal world being Lord Brahma's followers was a secret. It was said that the High Firmament Academy had been visited countless times by Lord Brahma's believers, but the Academy was unmoved by force or persuasion. They refused to join Lord Brahma's side. It was even said that they had been threatened by people beneath Lord Brahma. For the 5 powers to join forces to kill Bai Shishir here, it was clear that they were intent on stopping the High Firmament Academy from rising. They wanted the High Firmament Academy to slowly decline. Long Chen then brought Luo Bing and the others away. He wanted to go around Chunyang's group, but suddenly, Bai Xiaola found a path within the ruins. Bai Shishir entered this place one day ago. Long Chen and the others were delighted that Bai Xiaola sensed Bai Shishir's aura. They hastily rushed down the path. Everyone entered the path and carefully covered it up behind them. The entrance to this path was very well hidden. If it wasn't for Bai Xiaola's special divine ability, they wouldn't have noticed it. Upon entering the path, Long Chen found that it seemed to be a corridor that had been covered by earth, causing it to become an underground passageway. As they were walking between the walls, they could see murals all around them. But due to the immense time that had passed, the murals were too faded to be depicted. The passageway was covered in cracks, as if it might collapse at any moment. There were new footprints though, indicating that Bai Xiaoshi and the others had passed through this place. Wait! Long Chen suddenly raised his hand, causing everyone to stop. He squatted down and looked at the ground. There was a small thread thinner than a person's hair in the dusty dirt. Let alone someone not paying attention, even if you were to look carefully, you might easily miss it. The Heaven Female Alliance's people aren't bad. They actually know how to set up mechanisms. Long Chen smiled. This thread was hidden perfectly within the messy footprints, so it was very difficult to notice. If it weren't for Long Chen's sense of danger, he also wouldn't have noticed it. Take note of this thread. Don't touch it. Long Chen didn't break the mechanism. Instead, he made a mark and had everyone carefully pass it. Only once everyone was passed did Long Chen remove his mark. Using his spiritual strength, he was surprised to find that he wasn't even able to tell where this thread led to or what kind of mechanism it might trigger. However, if he could sense danger, it definitely wasn't lacking in power. It seemed that he had underestimated the Heaven Female Alliance. The #1 guild of the High Firmament Academy was truly full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. After they passed through as well, the footprints grew even more chaotic. If people came after them, they would be able to easily tell that two groups of people had passed through. Also, as they wouldn't suspect there to be any traps, there was a very high chance of anyone who followed them running into it. They found 2 more traps that Long Chen avoided. The further they went, the more intact the stone walls became. However, most of the murals had been destroyed by some tools. It seemed that those ancient people were concealing something. After traveling a while further, Long Chen suddenly squatted down and picked up a thumb-sized bone. This bone was eroded and full of tiny holes. It was as if just lightly touching it would turn it to dust. "What's that?" asked Luo Bing curiously. "It's a crystal bone from a devil creature. Although it's badly damaged, you can vaguely see the devil creature's runes on it. It should be on the level of a king," said Long Chen, closely examining it. "A devil king?" Luo Bing and the others were shocked. Luo Ning couldn't help saying, "Isn't it said that once they reach the level of a devil king, a devil creature's body can be likened to divine weapons, and the crystal bone will be blessed with the same longevity as heaven and earth, never aging or decaying?" This was why Luo Bing and the others were so shocked. Even a devil king's crystal bone, said to be undying and undecaying, had turned into this state. Then just how old was this place? Long Chen shook his head. That so-called never aging or decaying is based on the human race's lifespan. In this world, anything that has a form will eventually decay. So that's why there are no corpses here in these ruins. They eroded a long time ago, said Mu Qingyun. Long Chen continued leading the way. The path grew wider and wider until they reached a fork. Now, there were 3 paths to choose from. Bai Xiaoshi and the others' footprints led to the leftmost path. Just as they were going to follow those footprints, Long Chen said, "These footprints are fake." That startled everyone. How could these footprints be fake? Luo Bing and the others stared and couldn't see anything off. "Brother San, what's going on?" asked Mu Qingyun. Long Chen sighed. "You are all lacking experience in this regard. I'll give you a lesson. Look at their footprints and tell me what the difference is between their footsteps and ours." Everyone compared but still didn't notice anything different. They were lost. "It seems that our footsteps are a bit messier compared to theirs. Their footprints might be a bit clearer. I don't know if I'm right or not," said Mu Qingyun hesitantly. "Smart. You are correct. Bai Xiaoshi and the others definitely have a way to find the correct path after coming here. However, in order to prevent themselves from being tracked, they had people walk on that path first. After a certain length, those people retraced their steps. They stepped into their own footprints, so naturally they appear different from when people are just casually walking. Most likely, there is another trap at the end of that path. The reason the Heaven Female Alliance could become the Academy's #1 guild is definitely not due to coincidence. They have capable people amongst their ranks, said Long Chen. Hearing this, people felt a chill on their backs. This kind of trap setting was frightening. If they didn't have Long Chen leading the way, they probably would have been wiped out on the very first trap. Both Bai Shishir and Long Chen's scheming went far deeper than they dreamed. Compared to the two of them, they were like idiots. It seemed that it wasn't just combat power that they were lacking compared to real experts. Xiaola, sense her again, said Long Chen. As expected, when Bai Xiaola used his divine ability, they quickly determined which path she had gone to. It was the middle path. But how are we supposed to go without leaving footprints? That would ruin Bai Shishir's trap, no? Asked Luo Bing. Hee, that isn't a problem for me, Bai Xiaola. Just leave it to me, said Bai Xiaola confidently. His spatial divine ability could transport people, albeit only for a short distance. First, Long Chen led a few people down the left path to imitate that a second group had gone in that direction for any pursuers. Otherwise, it would be far too obvious that something was up. After that, Bai Xiaola formed hand seals, and space twisted around them. They felt like they had entered a transportation formation. They were then sent far into the middle path, and they once more saw Bai Shishir and the others' footprints. Good job. Long Chen patted Bai Xiaola's shoulder. Bai Xiaola's face was deathly white. Just now, he had expended a huge amount of energy to bring them along. However, his face lit up again when he obtained Long Chen's praise. Luo Bing and the others also praised Bai Xiaola. His spatial divine ability was truly amazing. The other aspect was that Bai Xiaola was like a child and liked being praised, especially such direct praise. That was because indirect praise was something that he might not understand. Everyone's praise made Bai Xiaola so happy he couldn't stop smiling. He very much enjoyed this feeling. Following the path forward, they no longer encountered any traps. It seemed that Bai Shishir and the others were confident in their traps and no longer felt the need to place more. Suddenly, the space ahead of them widened, and they arrived in a giant palace hall. But as soon as they entered this place, everyone let out a grunt. It felt like their souls were being pulled out of their bodies. Long Chen's gaze instantly sharpened. He saw countless corpses within the hall, and the pressure from those corpses was what made people's souls feel like they were being torn apart. Just at this moment, rays of sword chi collapsed on them from every direction. We're on your side. Long Chen shouted in the face of this sharp sword chi. The sword chi suddenly vanished. After that, some runes shuddered, and a dozen women appeared around them. So you have a formation expert too. Truly skillful. Long Chen was surprised. These people had hidden themselves in the air with a formation. The Heaven Female Alliance was truly a group of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Long Chen. Those women eyed Long Chen, their expressions turning cold. This place was first discovered by the Heaven Female Alliance. Please leave. Clearly, the Heaven Female Alliance viewed this place as their territory. They were unwilling to share the spoils with anyone, not even fellow disciples of the Academy. How laughable. This place is surrounded by the other 5 major powers. Over 6 million experts are coming to take Bai Shishir's head. You're actually in the mood to play such a game? Sneered Bai Xiaola disdainfully. What did you say? Those disciples were shocked. Bai Xiaola continued, What did I say? Are your ears broken? We received information and came to save you, but instead of being grateful, you want to drive us away. Women really are stupid. Cough, of course, I'm not talking about big sisters Qingyun, Luo Bing and Luo Ning. I'm talking about the people by Bai Shishir's side. Bai Xiaola wasn't afraid of Bai Shishir. Her sister never gave him a good impression, so he never had a good attitude toward her either. However, today he ended up drawing in all women in his insults, causing him to hastily apologize. Even if the 5 powers join forces, our Heaven Female Alliance isn't afraid. We don't need the help of you men. Those disciples were infuriated by Bai Xiaola's arrogance. Senior apprentice sisters, Luo Bing tried to interject, but Long Chen stopped her. It's fine. We just came to inform them. We have accomplished our mission. Whether or not they listen is their own matter. They can play with their own lives. We should focus on ourselves. Longchen was also angry. The Heaven Female Alliance's disciples seemed to be a bit too arrogant. They didn't even recognize kindness. Hence, Longchen prepared to leave with his people. As for Bai Shishir and the others, it had nothing to do with them. Slow down. Just at this moment, space shuddered and Bai Shishir appeared. This place was originally filled with a sinister and dark air of decay, but when she appeared, she was like a goddess infecting this place with her light. It was like she had walked out of a painting, and the people behind Longchen forgot how to breathe. Bai Shishir's beauty was something that not even women could resist. Although most of them had seen her before, it had definitely not been at such a close distance. It felt both real and illusory, as if they were in a dream. You said that the 5 powers have joined forces to kill me? Asked Bai Shishir. The Heaven Female Alliance's disciples stood behind her. Even Longchen felt his heartbeat quickening when Bai Shishir stared at him like this. But he couldn't be suppressed by her aura. Otherwise, he would only be looked down upon by her. With a calm face, he said, I can't be bothered to say it. Xiaola, you explain. Train your communication skills. Bai Xiaola shook his head. Boss, I have nothing to say to her. Forgive me for being unable to follow your orders. You. Longchen didn't answer, and Bai Xiaola refused to speak. That rudeness enraged the Heaven Female Alliance's disciples. What you? We are your saviors, but look at how you treat us? No wonder everyone says that women are dash. Let me explain. Luo Bing hastily interjected, explaining everything. Upon learning that the 5 powers had joined forces to wipe out the High Firmament Academy's disciples in the Jiuli Immortal land, killing intent surged within Bai Shishir's eyes. If I had known this, I wouldn't have shown mercy. I'd have killed that idiot Lu Chunyang, said Bai Shishir hatefully. Back then, Lu Chunyang had provoked her, angering her. However, she had only been intent on giving him a lesson. She had injured him and chased him for a while, killing a few hundred of the 9 Cauldron Church's experts. At that time, she felt like the lesson was enough, and she was also worried about the others, so she didn't continue chasing. Should we charge out while their encirclement is still incomplete? If we're surrounded by millions of experts as well as the peak experts of the 5 powers, we'll probably lose out, said the vice leader of the Heaven Female Alliance. She was wise and experienced, and her opinion was something Bai Shishir cared about. Furthermore, she said lose out, not be completely wiped out. That was due to her respect for Bai Shishir. She knew that Bai Shishir was prideful, and if she was provoked, she might just go for an all-out clash with the other side. That's right, killing our way out now is best. We'd take the initiative into our hands, and then we'd be the one hunting them down, said another disciple of the Heaven Female Alliance. Everyone looked at Bai Shishir, who frowned slightly. After thinking about it, she suddenly turned to Longchen. I have to thank you for reporting this to me. This is our best chance to charge out, but I just found the location of the treasury in these ruins. I'm a bit unwilling to leave just like this. I want to take the risk and see if I can obtain the treasures inside. If you are willing to take this risk with me, I can split the treasures with you evenly. Longchen's expression was originally calm, but when he heard that there was a treasury, his eyes brightened. He seemed to become invigorated. Who cares about treasures? We're all from the same sect, and should be united. Helping each other is only natural. Talking about treasures will only harm our relationship. Well, the main thing is that all of us like taking risks. Longchen's completely hypocritical words didn't match the expression on his face. Clearly, he was more interested in this treasury than them. The Heaven Female Alliance's disciples looked at Longchen scornfully. This person was so hypocritical. Min Jun, continue guarding this place. If the other side enters the path, immediately report it, said Bai Shishir. Yes. Those disciples once more vanished into space, concealing themselves. Come with me. Be careful not to touch any of those corpses. They are Earth Devil Kings from the immemorial devil race. If you touch them, the remnant devil pressure will wipe out your soul. Bai Shishir carefully led the way through those corpses, heading toward the center of the hall. There were hundreds of corpses scattered throughout the hall. They were withered but hadn't rotted. They were simply dried corpses. They were humanoid in form, but they had a horn on their heads similar to a rhinoceros. The immense pressure filling this hall came from those horns. After so many years, even divine weapons would corrode. But these corpses were still intact. That was enough to show just how terrifying Devil Kings were. It was hard to imagine just how powerful they were when they were alive. However, even such terrifying existences had died here. Furthermore, there wasn't the slightest mark on any of their bodies. The way they died was very strange. As they carefully went around the corpses, Bai Shishir led them to the throne. Behind it was a giant statue. The statue was 300 meters tall. It was an elder sitting lotus-style and forming hand seals. His eyes were half closed, and there seemed to be divine light moving within them. On top of his head was a starry river. This was the only completely intact existence within this hall. It was unknown just how many tens of thousands of years had passed here. There was dust everywhere, but only this statue remained untouched by dust. It was as if it had passed through countless years untouched. They even sensed a sharp domineering air from it. The Starry River Sage? Long Chen's heart shook. He felt a strange sense of familiarity when he looked at this statue. However, he didn't know if this sense of familiarity came from the Starry River of the Sky art or the 9-star Hegemon body art. Correct. He is the Starry River Sage, the creator of the Starry River of the Sky art. He was an illustrious figure, having left behind many Tao doctrines throughout various lands of the immortal world. Who would have thought that the Jiuli immortal land was actually his birthplace? Bai Shishir nodded. She herself had jumped in shock when she first saw this statue. The Starry River Sage was an extremely famous existence, and this statue was his inheritance statue. The reason it was untouched by dust was because his Tao doctrines had yet to be lost, so faith energy was still constantly flowing here. Perhaps that was why this palace and other things related to the Starry River Sage managed to be preserved. Bai Shishir led them behind the statue. There was a staircase that actually led into the statue here. Within the statue was a spirit pool. However, it had already dried up. All that remained was a bead at the core of the spirit pool, and mist swirled inside of the bead. Long Chun could sense pure faith energy inside of it. This was the core of the divine statue, and all its faith energy was condensed inside of the bead. Just at that moment, Long Chen was shocked to find a skeleton on the side of the spirit pool. Those bones sparkled like jade and were covered in runes. However, the skeleton's posture was a bit strange. Its hands were in front of its chest. Long Chen then looked at Bai Shishir, and she took out a bone book and handed it to him. This was what it was holding. I can't read what is written here. Long Chen received the bone book that was extremely heavy and cold. At this moment, he felt his soul shake. He didn't know what material this bone book was made of, but it was absolutely terrifying. However, if the bone book wasn't this powerful, then it probably wouldn't have managed to last after all this time. Long Chen looked at it and was startled. Jiuli immortal characters? Jiuli immortal characters were one of the most ancient characters in the immortal world. The human race's history was split into the current era, ancient era, archaic era, immemorial era, desolate era, and the primal chaos era. The Jiuli immortal characters were created by the Jiuli race in the desolate era. The current era referred to the past million years, and its historical records were very clear. As for the ancient era, it referred to 1 million to 10 million years ago, and although there were historical records about it, many versions of the records were spread all over the world. There were several different records of the same matter, making it impossible to determine the truth. As for the archaic era, that referred to 10 million to 100 million years ago. The history of this period was even more tangled and complicated. There was no longer any way to determine the truth of many of the things that came from that period. The immemorial era and the desolate era's history were practically just vague concepts. They couldn't be calculated based on years. It was only in the immemorial era that the human race set foot on the path of cultivation. Also, the cultivation techniques and battle skills of that time were all primitive and embryonic. Due to how much time had passed, everything was vague. The desolate era was said to be a lawless time. The human race was still at the bottom of the food chain. There were no written records, only some murals that showed how difficult life was for the human race back then. As for the Jiuli race, they had their own symbols passed down from generation to generation, which eventually developed through countless years. By the immemorial era, the symbols became a written language and were called Jiuli immortal characters. Considering their ancient history that developed from ancient symbols, sometimes a single character could represent an entire inheritance. It could even be a bloodline symbol. Those primitive Jiuli immortal characters could not be read by people in the current era. Furthermore, after another era, when the human race entered the archaic era, the Jiuli immortal characters once more transformed. That was the third generation of Jiuli immortal characters. As for the current immortal world's immortal characters, they were the seventh generation. In this era, those who could read sixth-generation Jiuli immortal characters were very rare, let alone the third generation. That was why Bai Shishir couldn't recognize them. You can read them? Now it was Bai Shishir's turn to be shocked. The immortal characters had changed, and to go back generation after generation in an attempt to learn them was extremely taxing. Even Bai Shishir, who had once focused on learning these characters, had only learned them up to the fifth generation. She truly didn't have the time or energy to learn the fourth-generation characters. As for these Jiuli immortal characters, she could barely recognize them to be of the third generation, but she didn't know a single one of them. She was truly shocked. "I know a bit," said Long Chen. "Can you read it?" asked Bai Shishir. "It shouldn't be a problem." Long Chen read through the contents before slowly saying, "Calamity has struck today. The Starry River sect cannot escape this tribulation. The sect master died in battle, and every single one of our experts has perished. I drew our enemies to the ancestral palace, using my blood soul to activate the Starry River Grand Formation to wipe them out along with myself. The Morning Dao world will now fall within the cracks of the 10,000 worlds. Disciple is too unworthy and powerless to restore the Starry River inheritance. I feel regret, pity, and hatred. If the heavens are assisting the Starry River sect, then someone brought here by destiny can inherit the Starry River legacy. Using my bones, open the underground gate and subdue the heaven-merging stone spirit." The characters ended there. This person had clearly not finished writing before dying. As soon as Long Chen was done reading, the ancient bone book in his hand turned to dust that slowly dissipated until it was gone. Jiuli immortal characters are truly terrifying. That bone was not some powerful existence. It was the characters that preserved it, said Long Chen, sighing. Legend was that the most primeval Jiuli immortal characters could allow one to see through the mysteries of heaven and earth, to reach an undying realm and never age. For even third-generation Jiuli immortal characters to have such power, it seemed that this legend was not completely unfounded. "Let's go down." After a moment's shock, Bai Shishir instructed people to take that person's skeleton. They followed the path down below the divine statue. Following the path down, it was unknown just how far they went, but they suddenly heard a strange sound. That sound was light, and yet it made their hearts violently clench. Everyone's expressions changed. "What is that?" It rang out once more. That sound was even clearer this time. Everyone's hearts once more clenched. It seems to be a heartbeat. Long Chen was truly shocked. It most definitely sounded like a heartbeat. A heartbeat? For even the sound of a heart beating to be so unbearable, what kind of terrifying life form was it? Bai Shishir was also shocked. She hadn't expected such a terrifying existence to appear underground. Everyone carefully continued forward. A portion of people were unable to endure it and felt like their hearts would jump out of their chests. They no longer dared to continue pressing forward. Long Chen ordered them to return to the surface, while the rest continued onwards. It went without saying that the Heaven Female Alliance's experts were truly powerful. Even though over 1,000 people on Long Chen's side were already unable to bear it, not one of those women retreated. As they continued, the sound of the heartbeat grew louder, and they found it even harder to breathe. It felt as if their organs would be crushed. As a result, on Long Chen's side, only about 20 people were able to continue. Those 20 people included Bai Xiaola, Mu Qingyun, Luo Bing, Luo Ning, Zhong Ling, Zhong Xiu, and Li Kai. As for Bai Shishir's side, they were now down to just over 100 people. The rest all returned to the surface. They finally arrived at a giant stone gate. There was a circular design on the gate. Long Chen and the others were pondering how to open it when a ray of light shot out of the circular design and illuminated the skeleton's head. A divine mark appeared on the skull, reflecting with that divine light. Following that, the stone gate began to tremble intensely. The stone gate slowly opened. As it opened, the mark on the skull also faded. Once it fully vanished, the entire skeleton turned dim and seemed to go through countless years of erosion, transforming into dust. Long Chen sighed inside. This person should be the final member of the Starry River sect. He had to know many secrets, but hadn't had a chance to write those secrets down before dying. The Starry River sky was destroyed. This person was filled with hatred over this, and through his last remains, he planted the seed of vengeance. This was quite similar to a 9-star heir. However, as a 9-star heir, Long Chen still didn't know just who he was supposed to find vengeance on. He even doubted whether he was a true 9-star heir. He didn't even have the complete inheritance. When the door opened, the sound of the heartbeat grew even louder. Now it was like a star was repeatedly striking. Luo Bing and the others almost coughed up blood. They had to unleash all their power just to resist it. Bai Shishir and Long Chen walked through together. Everyone else carefully followed behind them. 300 meters further, they saw a large fighting ring. Standing at the edge of that fighting ring that was hundreds of miles long, they felt as tiny as ants. This fighting ring was already badly damaged with holes all over. At the center of it was a 300-meter giant lying on the ground. Their entire body was covered in stone-like skin. Their stomach was still slowly rising and falling, as if they were sleeping. That terrifying heartbeat sound was coming from it. With every heartbeat, the fighting ring shuddered. Suddenly, a piece of stone on the edge of the fighting ring fell to the ground, transforming into a pile of broken bits. The insides of those fragments were golden with blood-colored lines throughout them. It's actually Phoenix blood sand gold. This entire fighting ring was made out of the best immortal materials. It's too bad that too much time has passed. The gold sand's energy has already been exhausted by the runes and turned to trash. Bai Shishir sighed regretfully. For a powerful metal cultivator like her, that Phoenix blood sand gold was very valuable. That was why it was such a pity. That's the heaven-merging stone spirit. Pretty girl, it's time for you to use your abilities, said Long Chen as he looked at the giant. What did you call me? Bai Shishir looked at Long Chen coldly. It seemed she had a great distaste for this appellation. What are you looking at me like that for? Calling you a pretty girl is praise. Why can't you differentiate between good and bad? Long Chen looked at Bai Shishir irritably. Exactly. My boss calling you pretty lady is because he looks favorably upon you. Not calling you snotty girl is already giving you face. You always had snot coming out of your nose when you were small. Don't think that I don't know, exclaimed Bai Xiaola immediately when Long Chen and Bai Shishir started clashing. You little brat, do you need a spanking? Bai Shishir's fury instantly soared. Seeing her enraged, rather than being scared, Bai Xiaola grew even more zealous. If I'm a brat, then you're a brat too. What about it? Do you want to hit people? Come, I have a boss now. My boss even dares to beat our dad. Just try and touch him, and you'll see that my boss doesn't even care about you. My boss said that women like you should be turned into bed warmers, and if you don't listen you should be beaten. Bai Xiaola's words left everyone stunned. The Heaven Female Alliance's disciples stared at Long Chen in disbelief. Ignoring everyone else, even Long Chen's own expression darkened. Just when had he ever said such a thing? This little fellow's head had once more gotten off kilter. Was he intentionally conning him? Did you really say that? Bai Shishir glared at Long Chen hatefully. The Heaven Female Alliance's disciples clenched their fists. After following Bai Shishir for so long, this was actually their first time seeing her so angry. They prepared to fight. That's right. Come, my boss isn't afraid of you. Just as Bai Xiaola was arrogantly shouting, Luo Ning covered his mouth. Fairy Shirshir, don't listen to Xiaola's nonsense. Long Chen definitely never said such a thing, explained Luo Ning hastily. Luo Bing and the others were speechless. What kind of time was it for this nonsense? Could it be that the world of experts was truly so inexplicable? If I learn you said such a thing, I'll beat you to a pulp, said Bai Shirshir coldly. Long Chen was enraged. How could he have possibly said such a thing? She was essentially threatening him. Without the slightest courtesy, he replied, whether or not I said that isn't important. I just want to ask you, did you really have a snotty nose as a child? The kind where it flies out like noodles? Scram. Bai Shirshir's eyebrows were vertical. A single word was spit out from the cracks between her teeth. Just at this moment, the fighting ring shuddered. Luo Bing and the others stared in terror behind Long Chen and Bai Shirshir. The two of them also felt a chill, as if some terrifying thing was staring at them. They slowly turned around to find that the sleeping giant had actually stood up and was staring at them. Are you here to challenge me? Luo Bing and the others stared in terror at that giant. Its entire body was covered in runes. When it woke up, the sound of the heartbeat vanished, but instead, its terrifying pressure slowly crushed them. Even its voice caused this entire space to shudder. It felt as if as long as it shouted, it could blast them to pieces. The person who wrote the bone book wanted someone to subdue it? What a giant joke. Challenge it? How were they supposed to challenge it? Everyone looked at Long Chen and Bai Shirshir. That's right, we came to challenge you. Activate the formal ceremony, said Long Chen fearlessly. In his arrogance, he actually included Bai Shirshir in his words, causing everyone to jump. The giant spread its hand. A snow-white ball of light appeared in front of Long Chen and Bai Shirshir. Place your hand on it and we can start, said the giant. Big fellow, prepare yourself. I'm going to. Long Chen suddenly grabbed Bai Shirshir's hand and pressed it down on the globe of light. Bai Shirshir had never expected Long Chen to say such big words with such an arrogant expression just to con her. Long Chen was quick as lightning, but Bai Shirshir's reaction was even faster. Just as her hand was about to touch the globe, golden light appeared on her hand, and Long Chen felt like he was grabbing an oily mud fish. With a light pull, Bai Shirshir escaped his hold. By the time that Long Chen reacted, his hand was already pressing against the globe. Space seemed to solidify. Everyone stared at Long Chen. Serves you right. The Heaven Female Alliance's disciples were originally infuriated when they saw Long Chen con Bai Shirshir, but seeing him only con himself, they instantly grew delighted. Bai Shirshir looked at Long Chen's lifeless expression and slowly smiled. What are you smiling about? This was a huge opportunity, and I actually selflessly gave it to you, but you refused to accept my kindness. Raged Long Chen. Please, this opportunity should be left to you. I wish you good fortune. Bai Shirshir's smile made her even more beautiful. But she clearly didn't believe in his good intentions. Just at this moment, the light enveloped Long Chen, and he appeared in front of the giant. The light then spread to cover the entire fighting ring. This light was actually a barrier. Once the barrier was formed, they were unable to hear anything through it. The terrifying aura from the giant also faded. It felt like a giant mountain crushing them had suddenly vanished. Will Brother San be all right? Asked Mu Qingyun worriedly. He was like an ant in front of that giant. It was like a single finger could crush him. He'll be fine. This should be a trial. Although this giant is terrifying, it doesn't have any killing intent. It won't be killing anyone. That's why Long Chen would think of conning me, said Bai Shirshir. Hearing that, everyone relaxed slightly. The Heaven Female Alliance's disciples felt slightly less malice for Long Chen. Both Long Chen and Bai Shirshir had known that this giant had no killing intent, which was the only reason he messed around with Bai Shirshir. Long Chen looked up and then even further up. This terrifying giant was far too big. According to my agreement with Ying Lu, if you can defeat me within the same realm, I will recognize you as master. However, they left me here for too long. While in slumber, I inadvertently condensed a king crystal. No matter how I suppress my cultivation base, I can only suppress it to the peak of the 4-peak realm of your human race. I suppose in order to be fair, as long as you can endure the power of 1/10 of my 4-peak realm, it will count as your victory. How is that? Asked the giant. This giant spoke calmly, but it was like thunder in Long Chen's ears. It felt like his head would split open. Brother, can you speak quieter? My head hurts. Long Chen held his head. This giant was too terrifying. All right, I'll do my best to whisper. The giant nodded and really did lower its voice. However, even then, it caused space to rumble. But at least it was better than before, and his head no longer hurt. Let's start. Just as the giant was about to make its move, Long Chen suddenly said, "One moment. How long has it been since you fought with anyone?" "I don't know. After losing my bet with Ying Lu, I promised to stay here and wait for people to challenge me. But no one ever came. Then I repeatedly fell into slumber." "I have no concept of your human race's time," said the giant. "Then it's been a long time since you fought?" asked Long Chen. "Yes." "Then are you able to accurately control 1/10 of your power?" asked Long Chen. "It's not easy, but I can try," said the giant hesitantly. Long Chen instantly began to sweat. If the giant could accurately control itself to the peak of the 4-peak realm, perhaps it was winnable. However, this giant hadn't fought in who knew how many years. If it didn't control itself properly, wouldn't he simply be crushed? Then I think we should give up on it. There's still a bit of a problem with my cultivation technique, and I can't use my full power. I'm at too much of a disadvantage. Long Chen shook his head. Then you're giving up? The giant seemed a bit disappointed. I don't necessarily want to give up. I just want to see if we can find a fair way to compete. That's right, you should be from the Heavenly Stone Spirit race, right? The race said to keep their promises the most in the 9 heavens and 10 lands, asked Long Chen. The Heavenly Spirit race was not part of the human race. Instead, they could be considered stone spirits. They were born from heaven and earth, some of the life forms with the longest lifespans within this world. They were said to have kind dispositions, but weren't too friendly with the human race, because throughout history, they had suffered countless times at the hands of the human race. Wars had erupted between the two sides, causing hideous casualties. The Heavenly Stone Spirit race's experts' cultivation technique was simply sleeping. They could sleep for thousands, tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of years. If they weren't disturbed, they usually only woke up when they advanced. After asking some questions, Long Chen learned that this Heavenly Stone Spirit expert was tricked. After losing a bet, it promised to wait for someone to defeat it and become its master. Once its master died, it would have accomplished its promise. But even after so many years, no one challenged it. It ended up sleeping all the way until now. The Starry River sect was already destroyed, but it was still sleeping. It wasn't even aware of what was happening in the outside world. Upon reaching this point, Long Chen suddenly smiled like a wolf looking at a little sheep. "Brother, let's not fight. Why waste the effort? Just directly accept me as master, and I'll bring you out, restoring your freedom. How is that?" "We can't do that. The promise is a promise. The Heavenly Stone Spirit race must keep its promises," said the giant. "What promise?" "That fellow tricked you. The Starry River sect is already destroyed. Come with me. Once you're out, you'll have your freedom. We can all go back to our own homes. Isn't that good?" proposed Long Chen. The giant was shocked to hear that the Starry River sect was already destroyed, but he shook his head. "If I don't fulfill my promise, it would be breaking the promise. That would be a disgrace to the entire stone race. I won't do such a thing." "Then what can we do?" "You promised to fight others in the same realm, but you can't suppress your cultivation base to the same level as mine," said Long Chen, a bit speechless. This giant was truly stubborn. "How about you come back when your cultivation base reaches the peak of the 4-peak realm?" What? Long Chen couldn't possibly stay here that long. But this giant's power was overwhelming. If he could obtain his help, what would he have to fear? However, no matter what Long Chen said, this giant refused to leave this place. He had to have someone defeat it and recognize them as master to fulfill his promise from back then. Furthermore, Through his explanation, Long Chen learned that his agreement was to only help his master once before the agreement was complete. Hearing that, Long Chen was a bit disappointed. However, he suddenly had a thought. That person had at least had a bit of conscience to not make this giant their eternal slave. Even just having this giant attack one time would be absolutely terrifying. This was definitely the strongest life-protecting talisman. Unfortunately, Long Chen's enticing baits were all rejected. Someone had to defeat him for him to leave. Long Chen's mouth ran dry. It was useless. Long Chen was starting to get vexed. Outside the barrier, Bai Shishir and the others didn't know what was going on. They only saw Long Chen constantly gesturing and growing exasperated, while the giant was essentially repeatedly shaking his head. However, seeing that he wasn't in danger, everyone relaxed slightly and just calmly waited. Alright, then what about this? My cultivation base hasn't reached the peak of the 4-peak realm, and you can't suppress your cultivation base any longer. We should have a fair competition, said Long Chen helplessly. Alright, if you can come up with a fair way to compete, that would be best, said the giant. We can do it this way. Stick out your fist. I will also stick out my fist. I will use a kind of power within my body to fight you. That's no problem, right? Asked Long Chen. Of course that is no problem. I also want to leave this place, but I must fulfill my promise first. I know that you're a good person. Thank you for helping me, said the giant. I'm a good person? Long Chen was surprised. Of course. You have the mark of the butterfly spirit race on your hand, as well as the aura of the rainbow crane race on your body. You must be a good person. The butterfly spirit race is from the same spirit race as our heavenly stone spirit race. Although we don't have dealings with them, we can recognize their mark, said the giant. The butterfly spirit race. Long Chen instantly thought of when he had entered the netherworld with the old man. On top of the 9 springs, he had saved a beautiful woman with a pair of butterfly wings on her back. She had gratefully kissed his hand, leaving a mark. That mark had long since vanished. But this giant still noticed it. The rainbow crane is an auspicious beast of the entire immortal world. You have their aura on your body, so you must have come into contact with them. They also dislike the human race, so for them to be willing to interact with you shows that you are truly a good person. That is why you are in such a rush to become my master. I trust you. But the heavenly stone spirit race cares greatly about promises, so I can't go back on my promise. I accept your feelings, but a promise is a promise. You must defeat me first, said the giant gratefully. You're making me very ashamed. I'm saving you because of your combat power. I want you to help me. Even with Long Chen's thick face, he felt a burning sensation. Alright, let's not talk. Helping you is helping myself. As for whether or not we have any destiny, we'll see right now. Long Chen had the giant stick out his fist. He bent down and slowly extended his fist in front of Long Chen. This fist was bigger than an entire house. Only at this distance did Long Chen see countless runes covering it like the lines on a stone. Those runes weren't even activated, but their pressure hurt Long Chen's skin. He was truly terrifying. My method to compete is a bit different. You have to listen to my directions and not mess around, or I might lose my life, warned Long Chen. He felt like he was going crazy. He was actually doing something so dangerous. The giant nodded, indicating that he would listen. Only then did Long Chen slowly press his fist against that giant fist. He slowly closed his eyes. As soon as their fists touched, a layer of runes covered Long Chen's fist. There were actually signs that his fist was turning to stone. Long Chen was prepared for this. This giant had been slumbering for who knew how many years. His cultivation base had soared, but he hadn't fought with anyone, so he couldn't control its power. That was why Long Chen couldn't believe him when he said that he could control his power. He sensed the immense power in his body. It felt like he could destroy an entire world on his own. As the stone energy invaded his fist and his fist gradually turned the color of stone, Long Chen drew a trace of this energy into his dantian, sending it into the primal chaos space. When that energy entered the primal chaos space, the land began to turn to stone. 1 mile, 10 miles, 100 miles. The yellow soil turned to stone. When it finally reached a width of 1,000 miles, The primal chaos space shuddered slightly. It seemed that it had been woken by this invading power. The primal chaos space unleashed a wave of power. The stone earth was blasted apart. At the same time, a supreme will erupted. It seemed that the primal chaos space was angered. Boom. Long Chen's arm shook. His entire fist turned black as ink. An enormous power exploded like a volcano. The ground beneath his feet shattered. The giant was sent flying like a cannonball. The giant landed on the stone wall of the fighting ring. The entire fighting ring shook. The formation shattered. The roof began to cave in. Not good. Long Chen's expression changed. With such a giant roof falling, all of them would be crushed. Suddenly, the giant unleashed a cry and slammed two hands on the ground. For giant pillars soared out and kept the roof up. Bai Shishir and the others turned pale. They hadn't had any time to use any magical arts. They stared in shock. You've won. This warrior of the heavenly stone spirit race is willing to fight for you. The giant knelt down on one knee towards Long Chen. Long Chen himself was stunned. He saw that one of the heavenly stone spirit race's giant's arms was covered in cracks as if it would shatter at any moment. He was unable to beat this terrifying giant, so he had used the primal chaos bead's power. His goal had only been to show his power to prove that if they were in the same realm, he could defeat him. Although there was a hint of cheating, after all, the primal chaos bead was still part of his power. However, he hadn't expected the consequences to be so severe. The giant's arm was almost destroyed. Is your arm all right? Are you all right? Asked Long Chen hastily. Master, don't worry. I'm fine. Even as the giant spoke, his arm's runes came to life, moving across his arm and healing the cracks. Seeing that he was fine, Long Chen relaxed. He felt even greater shock at the primal chaos bead's power. Currently, he was unable to control its power. He had to draw in other people's power to disturb it into a counterattack if he wanted to use it. On the martial heaven continent, he had drawn in the heaven devastating bracelet, provoking the primal chaos bead. It unleashed a single attack that destroyed it without even giving it a chance to fight back. Just now, he had done the same with this giant's power. Thankfully, that giant's power didn't contain any malice. The primal chaos bead merely reflected the power. Otherwise, if it was angered, the primal chaos bead might have just killed the giant. Long Chen still understood far too little about the primal chaos bead. This mysterious bead he had obtained in the mortal world's Jiuli's secret realm was still hiding countless secrets. Wait a moment. Jiuli's secret realm, Jiuli immortal characters? Jiuli race? Could it be? Long Chen suddenly had a thought. Was the primal chaos bead related to the mysterious Jiuli race? Long Chen had come into contact with quite a few ancient immortal characters. It was difficult for him to comprehend other kinds of immortal characters, but he found it very easy to learn Jiuli immortal characters. Perhaps they were connected. Master, please place the slave mark. The heavenly stone spirit race's giant finally opened its mouth when he saw Long Chen's bewildered expression. No need. I trust you. Long Chen recovered his wits and shook his head. This simple and honest giant made Long Chen think of Wild. He felt him to be very pitiable. He had been tricked here and been in slumber for so long, and yet he still had to keep his promise. He was so foolish that it hurt his heart. He was just like Wild. No, part of the promise is for you to place a mark. I will then help you out once. Only then will the promise be fulfilled, said the giant. Long Chen rolled his eyes. As expected of the stone spirit race. Even his head was made of stone. There was no bending. Long Chen was already aware of his temperament. If he didn't place a slave mark, he wouldn't listen. Not wanting to waste the time, Long Chen directly placed a spiritual mark. This spiritual mark stunned the giant. You trust me and I trust you. This equal contract leaves my life in your hands and your life in my hands, said Long Chen with a smile. This mark connected their souls. Either side could kill the other now. It was truly something that could only be done between two people with utmost trust in each other. Thank you. The giant knelt on one knee and carried out an extremely ancient form of etiquette towards Long Chen. That was the highest expression of respect in the heavenly stone spirit race. That's enough. There's no need for us to be so courteous to each other. Don't call me master either. Although you've lived countless years, you've experienced too little. I won't stand on courtesy. You can call me Brother San, said Long Chen unashamedly. Brother San? The giant instantly called him brother. For such a terrifying existence to call him brother, even Long Chen felt pride. What's your name? I have no name. When I was born, my people told me to go out for tempering. After condensing the king crystal, I have to return to my race and be bestowed a name by our leader. However, I encountered Ing Lu not long after I went tempering, then I lost my bet with him and was stuck here. Actually, I really want to return home and see my father and mother. They're definitely worried after not seeing me for so many years, said the giant sadly. He no longer seemed like an expert, but a child that had gotten lost. Don't worry. Once we get out, I'll help you return home, said Long Chen. He felt a bit of disdain for that Ing Lu. That fellow had actually taken advantage of such an innocent soul. He was absolutely shameless. Don't resist. I'll bring you to my spiritual space, said Long Chen. The giant nodded. Since their souls were connected, he suddenly vanished. He was now in Long Chen's vast spiritual space. In the distance, he saw a giant gate. Even compared to his giant form, he was tiny in front of that gate. A star shone within the gate. That was the divine gate star. The giant suddenly said, I feel like I've seen that star before. Long Chen jumped in shock. Do you know where you saw it? Let me think. It seems, at the top of the divine statue, there's a star diagram. That star seems a bit similar to this star, said the giant. Long Chen was delighted. It seemed that this stone statue actually contained its own world. They were at the bottom of the statue, but the top also had its own space. This giant had an innate divine ability, the heaven-merging eyes. He was capable of seeing through space. This world was practically transparent to it. That was why the person from the Starry River sect had called him the heaven-merging stone spirit. Hearing this, Long Chen immediately rushed out of the fighting ring. Luo Bing and the others' ears were rumbling, because the roof was still unstable. Chunks of it constantly fell despite the 4 pillars holding it up. It looked as if it might collapse at any moment. They hadn't heard anything that Long Chen had said to the giant even after the barrier was broken. Seeing Long Chen return safe and sound, and the giant had vanished, everyone was about to ask him what happened when Long Chen directly said, Let's go quickly. This place is going to collapse. Everyone followed the path forward, and just as they did, the rear shook. The giant fighting ring vanished. This fighting ring was its own space. Due to countless years passing without anyone watching over it, it was severely damaged. After the impact of the giant, it collapsed. Long Chen led them to the abdomen of the divine statue. However, he didn't see a staircase leading up further. There is an invisible door on the left. Push it open and it will lead to the top, said the giant within Long Chen's spiritual space. With the giant's reminder, Bai Xiaola used his spatial energy to sense a spatial gate. This spatial gate normally required a special key to open, but with the destruction of the Starry River sect and with no one to maintain the formation, the lack of energy supporting it made it easy for everyone to pass through. There's so many murals, Luo Bing exclaimed. Although they had also seen murals on the way here, those had been broken by others. These murals were still perfectly intact. These are records of cultivation techniques. They weren't recorded with characters. Instead, the Tao was passed down through murals. Careful. Just then Bai Shishir pulled back one of the women beside her. That woman hacked up blood. Blood poured out of her eyes, nose, ears, and mouth. Everyone was appalled. They looked around, but they didn't see any attackers. Long Chen pressed a finger against her forehead. A lightning rune flickered, and she woke up from her unconsciousness. Your soul has been severely damaged. You should focus on recondensing it while your soul energy has yet to scatter, said Long Chen. He also gave her a medicinal pill. After consuming the medicinal pill, her complexion improved. She gradually recovered. She nodded her thanks to Long Chen before closing her eyes and focusing entirely on healing. "Brother San, what just happened?" asked Mu Qingyun. "That had come out of nowhere." Bai Shishir said, "Everyone, don't try to study the murals, and don't investigate them with your spiritual strength. Our realms aren't high enough, and doing so will cause your soul to scatter." Qingyi just now was drawn in by the mental realm of the mural. By immersing herself in it, her soul almost crumbled. "Be wary." Everyone jumped in shock. Just now, they had truly been intent on closely examining these murals. They hadn't expected there to be such danger. It's all right if you look at them, as long as you aren't sucked in by them. Don't instinctively try to cultivate them. Sisters from the Heaven Female Alliance, I'll trouble you to gather these murals. When we give them to the Academy, we'll get a huge amount of points, as well as being able to cultivate these techniques for free once they're translated, said Long Chen. He was giving face to the Heaven Female Alliance. These murals might contain the secrets of the Starry River sect. On his side, he had too many random people. Other than the people from the two guilds, the others weren't so trustworthy. Bai Shishir to be able to instantly find the spies within her ranks after her battle with Lu Yunchang showed that she was very strict with her management of her subordinates. There shouldn't be anything like someone selfishly pocketing a few murals when it came to her people. Seeing Long Chen let them take the murals instead of splitting them, the Heaven Female Alliance's disciples were impressed. That was also a kind of trust. Their distaste for him lightened. These murals were not directly carved into the stone walls. Instead, the walls had been built with specific grooves for the murals, and they were then added on. These murals were incredibly precious. Although the formation was essentially out of energy, they were still extremely careful when taking them off. This was also why he had the Heaven Female Alliance do this work, because they were far more meticulous in comparison. The first mural was quickly taken down. It was a 3-foot square and 3 inches thick. Bai Shishir examined it and smiled. The mural's formation is one with the mural. Its energy has yet to scatter. The Academy will definitely have a way to extract the cultivation technique inside. The Academy might be lacking in other areas, but when it came to studying ancient tomes, they were definitely the strongest. Even incomplete inheritances could be restored. However, they still didn't know what level these techniques were. They had no way of appraising them. But for them to have been placed in such a hidden place, they were definitely the Starry River sect's highest level inheritances. They progressed slowly here, as extracting the murals was difficult. They couldn't make the slightest mistake. Some people took charge of recording how many they obtained. With so many eyes watching, no one dared to be careless. Long Chen, what about that heaven-merging stone spirit? Seeing everything going smoothly, Bai Shishir finally couldn't hold back her curiosity. "I accepted him as my junior brother," said Long Chen casually. "Junior brother?" Everyone was stunned. They had seen that Long Chen and the giant had been saying something, but then the giant had been sent flying. Even now, they didn't dare to believe that this was done by Long Chen. However, if he hadn't done that, this giant wouldn't be willing to leave with him. Everyone felt befuddled. They didn't know what had happened. "Hee, do you regret it? I told you that it was a huge opportunity that I was leaving you. Because of a promise, that giant was forced to stay here. He wanted to leave a long time ago, but no one came to defeat him, so he had to wait countless years. How could I have beaten him, you ask? Naturally, he acted like I defeated him and took me as master. As a result, I've gained a junior brother that I can bring out to play," said Long Chen. He was very pleased with Bai Shishir's stunned expression. Although it was a bit beyond belief, it was better than saying that Long Chen had used his own power to defeat the giant. No one would believe such a thing. "Brother San, doesn't that mean that you're completely unrivaled now?" asked Mu Qingyun excitedly. "No. The stone giant said that he will only help me once. After that, his promise will be complete, and we'll have nothing further to do with each other," said Long Chen. "Ah, what a pity. But now we have nothing to fear when it comes to Zhao Wujing and the others. You can just summon that giant and crush them," exclaimed Zhongling. "Them? Does killing chickens require such a thing? I don't want to waste such a trump card on them," said Long Chen. With his immense power, the stone giant's power had to be used at the right moment. If Long Chen felt the urge, perhaps he could con the giant into continuing to help him, but he wasn't willing to do such an immoral thing. That giant looked big, but he was really like a child. And he wanted to go home. He wanted to see his family again. Long Chen couldn't possibly hold him back for too long. But he also wouldn't waste such a good trump card. Hearing that he had obtained such a trump card, everyone felt greater confidence inside. The pressure that they felt from Zhao Wujing and the others lightened quite a bit. Pretty girl, do you regret it now? Long Chen looked at Bai Shishir like a pleased, petty little person. That was an appearance that deserved a spanking. Scram. Call me pretty girl again and I'll kill you. Bai Shishir glared at him and clenched her fists. What about snotty girl? Asked Bai Xiaola. You scram as well. Bai Shishir's voice rose a few levels. That appearance of hers was quite ominous. But it also contained another kind of beauty that didn't ruin her image at all. It felt as if she had truly gotten angry. Long Chen stopped teasing her and instead continued to watch as the murals were taken off. When they reached the end of the murals, Long Chen's smile vanished. His heartbeat quickened. Long Chen ran over to the murals at the end. He looked at the 9 stars revolving around a ball of light within. He was instantly enraptured. Is this the legendary 9 heavens, 10 lands? The 9 stars were revolving around a nebula. That nebula was like an entire cosmos, yet also like countless stars forming a single celestial body. Standing in front of that mural, he felt like a speck of dust. He felt completely minuscule, powerless. The immortal world was said to have 9 heavens and 10 lands. The 9 heavens referred to 9 locations within the cosmos. The 10 lands referred to worlds behind the 9 heavens. Although Long Chen had read the Academy's books, he still didn't have a complete understanding of the 9 heavens and 10 lands. That was because those records were essentially legends, and only mentioned in miscellaneous notes and unofficial history. The Orthodox records did not mention the 9 heavens and 10 lands. That was because there was no basis for such a thing, so they couldn't randomly bring it up. Legend was that the 9 heavens and 10 lands composed the entire world. The heavens contained the 100 domains and 1,000 prefectures. The 10 lands were worlds behind the 9 heavens. Previously, Long Chen had read some books that mentioned such a thing, but he had been unable to comprehend it. But looking at this star diagram, he instantly understood. The 9 stars were giant, revolving around the giant sphere of light. The sphere of light emitted divine light that illuminated the 9 stars. However, behind the 9 stars were shadows just as big as them. Those were areas that the light couldn't reach. Where there was light, there was shadow. Long Chen finally understood what it meant when it was said that the 10 lands were worlds behind the 9 heavens. If there are 9 stars, there should only be 9 lands behind them, right? However, his theory was quickly broken. Just at that moment, his gaze roved around the star diagram. He looked down. He saw another depiction. It contained a man standing in the night sky. There were 7 stars behind him. The space around him twisted until it was collapsing. It was as if the entire world would shatter because of his existence. It looked to be a long-haired man. His arms were spread, and there seemed to be countless spots on his shoulders. Endless energy of heaven and earth poured towards him. Although it was just a mural, it was still possible to sense that supreme, lonely air of hegemony. 7-star battle armor. Long Chen's heart pounded. He was sure that this was a 9-star heir using the 7-star battle armor. It was a very simple depiction, but just a few strokes were enough to show his unrivaled domineeringness. That feeling was something that Long Chen was all too familiar with. He continued looking down. Beneath that 9-star heir was a person prostrating themselves before him. Continuing further, the 9-star heir was gone, but that person prostrating was now sitting in the sky, countless stars revolving around him. Within his dantian were 2 stars flowing in the form of the yin and yang fish. I understand. This person is the Starry River Sage. His Starry River of the Sky art was based on the 9-star hegemon body art. However, you can't have a dantian when cultivating the 9-star hegemon body art. This person blazed a new path, condensing yin and yang energy in his dantian to endure the impact of the astral energy so he didn't blow up. However, did he receive the inheritance of the 9-star heir, or was he simply enlightened by the sight of one of them? Long Chen felt that it was more likely that he had simply found an insight from a 9-star heir. For that person to be prostrating towards the 9-star heir, he had definitely received that person's favor. Perhaps the two of them even had some kind of relationship. The 9-star hegemon body art couldn't be transmitted to others. If it was, it would only harm them and kill them. Continuing to look down, he didn't see anything else. This mural ended here. It seemed that these murals were left behind by the Starry River Sage to record the origin of the Starry River Sage. Long Chen looked at the next mural. This mural depicted how the Starry River Sage had created the Starry River of the Sky art from the 9-star hegemon body art. It was concise and comprehensive. It seemed to be made by the same person as the first mural. There were many star diagrams. It looked extremely chaotic and messy, as if a child had randomly thrown paint. However, inside, Long Chen sighed. This Starry River Sage's imagination and calculation powers were truly astonishing. Based on the 7-star battle armor, he had split it into tens of thousands of steps that slowly imitated it. The Starry River Sage failed at this process countless times. He was almost blasted apart, but he still managed to create the Starry River of the Sky art. At the bottom of the second mural was a line of ancient text. Long Chen was actually unable to completely read it. A portion of them were third-generation Jiuli Immortal characters, but some were difficult to comprehend symbols. Long Chen could only assume that they were second-generation Jiuli Immortal characters. Since he didn't recognize a portion of the text, he could only generalize based on what he could read. The general meaning was that the Starry River Sage created the Starry River of the Sky art, but ended up injuring himself in the process. He died not long after. His oldest disciple was called Li Xinghe. He was the one who actually created the Starry River sect. Li Xinghe was not his original name. It was a name he took to show his gratitude to his master for transmitting the Tao to him. He became the Starry River Sage, living under his master's title. He carried out his master's legacy, creating the Starry River sect. Even the statue was actually of his master, not him. Reading here, Long Chen nodded inside. For a disciple to be so grateful, he was admirable. In comparison, Lord Brahma had received his master's blessing only to betray them. He was worse than trash. The characters also recorded how the Starry River of the Sky art still had many flaws. In terms of power, it was still a far cry from the 7-star battle armor. Furthermore, it was unable to create a manifestation of the dome of the sky, and was simply not recognized by the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Even right before his death, he couldn't let go of this regret. Long Chen sighed inside. This Starry River Sage could truly be considered a marvel of the heavens. Regretfully, he was not a 9-star heir. His fate ended there. For him to create the Starry River of the Sky art based on the 7-star battle armor was truly amazing. As for Li Xinghe, he was also admirable. He did all this for his master. Regretfully, the Starry River sect had been destroyed. Long Chen looked at the two murals. He now understood the creation of the Starry River sect as well as the Starry River of the Sky art. He once more looked at the star diagrams. There were countless star diagrams here. Most had been abandoned because there was no way to connect them. But these were fresh new ideas to Long Chen that inspired him. His inheritance was incomplete. He had also deviated from the original path when he forcibly condensed the 6-star battle armor. In the future, he would have to rely on himself. These possibilities laid out before him were very helpful. After examining the star diagrams, he then returned his focus to the 9-star heir. Seeing those spots on his arms, he suddenly had a thought. His heart almost jumped out of his chest. It was like a bolt of lightning had struck him. I've thought of it. I know how to control the power of my divine flames. As if he had been woken from a dream, Long Chen suddenly thought of how he could control his power. After igniting his divine flames, his 108,000 stars were like volcanoes. Once he activated them, those volcanoes would all erupt at the same time. The 108,000 stars were one body. There was no way to separate them, and no way to take out only a portion of their power. Either he didn't use them, or he used them all. It had already been quite a few days since he had entered the divine flame realm. Theoretically, he should have long since grown accustomed to using the power of his divine flames. But he had not. He had always thought that his control had yet to reach a sufficient level. If he tried using that overbearing power, he would only harm himself. When he had used Zhao Wujing to test himself, he had used that power. The injury to his arm was actually only partially from Zhao Wujing. A portion also came from a backlash from his own power. It was because he was unable to control his new power that he had not increased his cultivation base at all during this time. However, today Long Chen was enlightened by these star diagrams. It wasn't that his control was lacking. He was lacking something else. The Starry River Sage had created the Starry River of the Sky art based on the 7-star battle armor. The reason that he succeeded was because he had his yin and yang core to bear the brunt of his astral power. That was the yin and yang fish in the dantian of that person in the mural. As the yin and yang fish revolved, yin and yang alternated. The harsh astral power was softened, and then the astral power that could not be controlled before became usable. The Starry River Sage had changed his dantian to contain this yin and yang force field. It was an extremely brazen idea. At first, Long Chen hadn't had this spark of insight. But then when he saw the spots on the 9-star heir's arms, he thought of his own scales when he used the Azure Dragon battle armor. He had no dantian. He couldn't give rise to yin and yang energy. But he had the dragon scales that could contain his power. First he would send his astral power into his scales, and through his scales, he would control them. That would achieve the same effect as the Starry River Sage's yin and yang force field. He had 108,000 stars, and also 108,000 scales when he used the Azure Dragon battle armor. That couldn't possibly be a coincidence. In the past, when he used them both, they resonated with each other. But that feeling of resonance had vanished after entering the immortal world. He hadn't quite cared about that before. However, now he realized that the Azure Dragon battle armor was an equally miraculous technique. If it was merged with the 9-star Hegemon body art, he was completely confident in being able to control the power of his divine flames. Thinking of that, Long Chen began rapidly thinking of how he could merge them. That would solve his present predicament. Right now, his divine flames were like sledgehammers. If smashed on the earth, they would smash a giant hole, but the sledgehammer itself would shatter. He himself would be injured. What he needed was a softer handle, one that could still unleash the power of the hammer, but without injuring himself. That softer handle would be the Azure Dragon battle armor. Hey! Suddenly, just as he was immersed in his calculations, someone slammed their hand on his shoulder, causing him to jump. He looked back to see Bai Shishir. Seemingly surprised that someone as fearless as Long Chen would jump from a pat on the shoulder, Bai Shishir smiled. It seemed she felt it to be humorous, but also felt a bit apologetic. "What are you smiling about? Don't end up letting out some snot," said Long Chen irritably. Scram! Bai Shishir's smile vanished, replaced with anger. This fellow's mouth really was irritating. "What did you hit me for?" demanded Long Chen. "You've been staring at this mural for too long. Sometimes you're frowning, sometimes you're smiling. I was afraid you would become a mad dog and start crazily biting people," snorted Bai Shishir. Long Chen had been staring at the mural, and his expression had changed many times. They had also been rather extreme. Although his spiritual fluctuations were normal, Bai Shishir was worried he was in danger, so she had tried to draw him out of his stupor. For her good intentions to be responded with by Long Chen's cold words, she was naturally infuriated. Long Chen shrugged. "Fine, I blamed you wrongly. I apologize." Bai Shishir was caught a bit off guard by this apology. Long Chen's character changed far too much. She stared at Long Chen, not knowing if this was a sincere apology or just groundwork for more treacherous words. "I cultivate the Starry River of the Sky art. There are many aspects that I wasn't sure of, But after seeing this mural, I feel enlightened, as if the clouds have parted. That's why I was immersed. Right now, I need to go into seclusion for a short time. I'll trouble you to protect me, said Long Chen. Seclusion? Bai Shishir stared at him like he was a monster. Their current situation was pressing, but he wanted to go into seclusion? It won't be long. At most, 6 hours. If there's danger, you can wake me at any time, said Long Chen. Just at this moment, a jade plate on one of the Heaven Female Alliance's disciples' waists lit up. She said, "Someone has entered the passageway and triggered the alarm." Everyone's hearts tightened. Their path had been discovered. The 5 powers had already gathered, and now all their experts were definitely going to rush here. They had been discovered. That path was also the only way out. Now they were trapped. The 5 powers would definitely immediately seal that exit, and their top experts would be coming in. Bai Shishir looked at Long Chen. He smiled. "It's fine. Let them come. You can continue gathering the murals. I'm going into seclusion." Long Chen sat on the ground just like that. A layer of silver scales appeared on his body. Following that, a small star appeared on every scale. After the stars appeared, flames slowly ignited. Those flames caused the space to shudder. Even Bai Shishir's heart shook. An explosive power was now coming from Long Chen's body. "Hurry up! Gather the murals and get into top condition. Prepare for battle," shouted Bai Shishir when she saw that everyone was just staring at Long Chen in shock. Everyone quickened the pace. After 2 hours, all the murals had been gathered. They took inventory right there before giving them to Bai Shishir. During this time, the disciples skilled in formations received multiple signals that their enemies were pressing forward, continuously breaking through their traps and getting closer. "Guild leader, our enemies are about to reach the palace entrance. I feel like we should seal that location to occupy the territorial advantage," she said. "No need. Let them through." Just at this moment, Long Chen's voice rang out. Everyone was delighted. Long Chen had finished so quickly. He slowly stood and smiled brightly. It seemed that he was in an excellent mood. "Do you have a battle plan?" asked Bai Shishir. "No need. Have the guards pull back. I'll treat you to a marvelous show." Long Chen's smile was so sinister that it gave Bai Shishir goosebumps. Long Chen's instructions shocked everyone. The channel to the palace was the best place to defend. A single person could block an army there. However, Long Chen wanted them to just get in for free. The Heaven Female Alliance's experts looked at Bai Shishir. Bai Shishir also frowned. She asked, "Do you have a better battle plan?" "It can't count as a battle plan. But just blocking a path doesn't have any meaning. If we were to do so, perhaps we could block many of their numbers. But it would come at a price. They have more numbers, so we can't fight a battle of attrition. Furthermore, there is one person that we definitely can't block." "I'm sure you know who I'm talking about," said Long Chen. "You mean the assassin from the Bloodkill Hall?" "Yes. That assassin will be able to slip through a chaotic battlefield as easily as a fish swimming in water. Perhaps you and I aren't afraid of his assassination, but other than the 2 of us, no one can block his sure kill blow. Me, I like to get the biggest gains for the smallest price. Thus, I don't want the people by my side to be in such danger," said Long Chen. "If you're so afraid of death, what can you possibly accomplish?" muttered one of the Heaven Female Alliance's experts quietly. Although it was quiet, everyone heard it clearly. Her voice clearly contained a trace of disdain that caused Luo Bing and the others' expressions to grow ugly. This woman actually mocked Long Chen for being afraid of death? It didn't just infuriate them, it also infuriated the other disciples that Long Chen had brought with him. Although they hadn't been in contact with Long Chen for long, Long Chen had led them through their enemies without a single person on their side dying. That was probably an existence on par with a divine general. His exchange with Zhao Wujing had unleashed destructive power that had convinced all of them of his strength. For this woman to say that he was afraid of death was practically the greatest insult. Although they also respected and worshipped Fairy Shishir, they were still infuriated. They glared at her. Bai Shishir also felt like she had gone too far, and was about to chide her when Longchen said, "You are right, I'm truly afraid of dying. This life of mine doesn't belong to just me. It belongs to all the brothers and sisters who love me. I know that if I die, they will be so pained that they'd wish that they were the ones to die. My own death isn't important, but to cause so much pain to others would be too selfish. So you are right, I'm afraid of dying. Although I will also put my life on the line at times, I will make sure to lower the risk. I cherish my life, and I cherish other people's lives. If you feel like this is unsuitable, we can split up and fight on our own." Long Chen's tone was cold. Although there was no anger in his voice, everyone knew that her words had displeased him. "If you feel that you are strong enough and not afraid of dying, you can block that path on your own," sneered Luo Ning. "By fighting off the 5 powers forces on your own, won't you make a name for yourself? You can prove to everyone here that you are a peerless hero." Although she also verbally fought with Long Chen, she had never seen someone as brave as Long Chen. She was also angered. She didn't care who the other person was. She directly retorted, not even giving Bai Shishir face. Didn't she think that she was a badass? Was she not afraid of death? Then why bother fighting with everyone else? She could fight on her own. That woman was enraged, but before she could say anything, Bai Shishir coldly said, "Keep your mouth shut. Starting now, you are not permitted to speak. Another word, and you're expelled from the Heaven Female Alliance." Although Bai Shishir was arrogant and stubborn, this time that disciple of hers had gone too far. Despite not knowing Long Chen for long, she knew that every expert had their own pride, especially an expert like Long Chen. For this disciple to suddenly stir up trouble intentionally at such a time was absolutely brainless. That woman's expression finally changed. She no longer dared to make a sound. Instead, she found that even the other disciples of the Heaven Female Alliance were acting like they didn't know her, as if they were also offended by what she had just said. "Long Chen, my apologies. I did not discipline my disciples enough," said Bai Shishir. Long Chen smiled and shook his head. "It's fine. We should still be working together. I also am truly afraid of dying. My words just now were nothing personal. The combat style between the two of us is different. Perhaps you like facing your enemies directly on the narrow path for a brave battle to the death. It's simple, direct, and quick. It truly is the most suitable method for the immortal world's law of survival. However, I prefer getting the biggest gains with the lowest price, to get the greatest victory with the fewest casualties. If you trust me, hopefully you can cooperate with me. If you feel like my style doesn't suit you, we can each fight for ourselves." For a moment, everyone's eyes focused on Bai Shishir as they waited for her decision. Bai Shishir had always been proud and aloof. Luo Bing and the others were a bit worried. Unexpectedly, Bai Shishir smiled. "I'm very curious as to your smallest price for the greatest gain. Just treat it as me taking a lesson. I'll leave you to direct this battle." That agreement astonished the Heaven Female Alliance's disciples. They didn't recall Bai Shishir ever cooperating with others like this, especially not with a man. Luo Bing and the others cheered. Long Chen truly was powerful. Even Bai Shishir was willing to listen to his direction. Now they could truly be said to be united. Long Chen smiled. He felt much more relaxed. If Bai Shishir refused to cooperate, they would probably suffer in this upcoming battle. "I previously felt that other than being beautiful, you didn't have any strong points. But you're actually pretty good. The way you praise people is quite special. It's just a bit far-fetched," said Bai Shishir indifferently. She was already numb to other people's praise. But for some reason, this praise did cause some tiny fluctuations inside. It was as if obtaining his praise was something worth being happy about. "Xiaola, I'm giving you an important mission. Since Fairy Shishir has agreed to work together, let's go big. We'll exterminate all the experts from the 5 powers," said Long Chen with a rare excitement. He wasn't aware that black spots appeared deep within his eyes. It was as if the eyes of a fiend were slowly awakening. "Boss, just tell me what you want to set up." Bai Xiaola patted his chest excitedly. Bai Xiaola was never given a high opinion, and his father was always beating him. Because of it, he started to feel inferior inside. But ever since he started following Long Chen, everyone viewed him as a friend. No one was looking down on him. Furthermore, when he had used his divine ability to transport everyone through space, their stunned gazes of admiration had definitely satisfied his vanity. Use your spatial energy to leave this place. After that, use my status plate to gather all the disciples of the academy here, said Long Chen. Boss, this place is too deep. My spatial energy probably can't pass through, said Bai Xiaola. His spatial power was inherited from his mother. However, he hadn't awakened his latent talent and could only do short-distance moves through space. Furthermore, with the Earth as a barrier, his range was further limited. You'll be fine. Go in that direction. There's a cave in there, and the walls are thin. With your power, you can easily pass through. Long Chen pointed. Bai Xiaola formed hand seals and sensed it. He was surprised. Boss, how did you know? You're amazing. Long Chen smiled slightly. This was information given to him by the heaven-merging spirit stone. Although he had said that he would only help Long Chen once, other than fighting, he could help out due to Long Chen's favor. With his heaven-merging eyes, he could see through the earth. Xiaola, once everyone is gathered, have them surround the entrance. When you receive my orders, you launch an attack and completely seal that path. I want all the experts of the 5 powers to be buried here, said Long Chen. Bai Xiaola was incomparably excited. He directly used his spatial divine ability and vanished. Long Chen sighed inside. Having a good father and mother was truly important to a cultivator. Due to his circumstances, Bai Xiaola hadn't managed to awaken his talent. But he already had such amazing abilities. If he did awaken those latent abilities, he could probably slip through heaven and earth with only a few being capable of stopping him. Upon hearing that Long Chen wished to bury all the experts of the 5 powers here, even Bai Shishir's heart shook. Despite that usual naughty smile that wasn't dependable at all, Long Chen was so ruthless. You wish Xiaola to do something so big? Are you not worried about a slip-up? Asked Bai Shishir, staring at Long Chen closely. Those who can follow me must have the ability to stand on their own. I trust him, said Long Chen. Seeing that she was about to continue arguing, Long Chen suddenly laughed. What, are you worried about something happening with the plan? Or are you worried about him? Why would I be worried about him? Snorted Bai Shishir coldly. Long Chen simply looked at her with a smile. What are you looking at? Raged Bai Shishir. His gaze made her uncomfortable. It was as if his gaze could see through a person's soul. You have good skin, said Long Chen. Do I need your praise? This sudden change caught Bai Shishir slightly off guard. Her beautiful face reddened ever so slightly, and she turned away from Long Chen. Bai Shishir was cold and aloof, and she rarely interacted with men. This behavior could even be considered an inexplicable distaste for men. It was to the extent that even the #1 handsome man of the academy, young Master Changchuan, was in existence that she never gave a second glance. The two of them had definitely not exchanged more than 10 words in the academy. Within the High Firmament Academy, both men and women were toppled by her beauty. Most men weren't even capable of speaking in front of her. However, the very first time she encountered Long Chen, she felt him to be different from others. When Long Chen first saw her, other than his eyes brightening ever so slightly, he returned to complete calm very quickly. That was the first time she ever encountered such a thing, so she became curious. Although she suspected that Long Chen was putting on such an act to draw her in, as time passed, she found that he truly was a strange person. He had beautiful women like Luo Bing, Luo Ning, and Mu Qingyun by his side, but he always maintained a distance from them. Many people assumed that the reason he had interjected himself into the conflict between the Luo family and the Chu family was due to a romantic relationship with Luo Bing, but reality showed that despite there being so many beautiful women beside him who also depended on him, he didn't even seem to understand romantic feelings. He continued to act carefree and casual. Originally, Bai Shishir thought him to be a foolish brat, but just now he said that he had hot-blooded brothers and women waiting for him. That didn't seem like someone who was inexperienced with emotions. To sum up, there were many mysterious parts to Long Chen that Bai Shishir found herself growing curious about. Even the way he spoke was strange and difficult to see through. Sometimes he could enrage a person with a single word, and sometimes he could make them laugh. He was an oddity. Seeing Bai Shirshir redden from Long Chen's gaze, Luo Bing smiled inside. That odd fellow Long Chen was something that even the #1 beauty of the academy couldn't completely defend against. After that, Long Chen just looked at his own hands as if he had nothing to do. It was unknown what he was thinking. What about us? How should we prepare? Asked Bai Shirshir after a moment passed. No need. We just need to wait. We'll stall until Bai Xiaola returns, said Long Chen. How will we stall? The formations and maze won't last much longer. At most, they'll arrive here in 4 hours. Bai Shirshir frowned. No problem. Leave it to me. At this moment, thin scales appeared on top of Long Chen's palms, and there were stars shining within those scales. Long Chen was silently circulating the power of his divine flames as a warm-up. Bai Shirshir stopped disturbing him after that. Everyone then sat and circulated their power, making sure to stay in their peak condition. Time passed bit by bit. As Bai Shirshir had calculated, they heard footsteps right as the 4th hour mark arrived. Those footsteps were intentionally let loose. The other side wanted Long Chen and the others to know that they were arriving. Bai Shirshir, you slut, come out and face your death. A voice rang out within the palace. Upon hearing this, the Heaven Female Alliance's disciples' expressions darkened. This voice belonged to Chunyang. This person, who was like a loyal dog to Bai Shirshir, actually dared to say such a thing here. Long Chen looked at Bai Shirshir and saw golden runes revolving in her eyes. It seemed that Bai Shirshir had been struck where it hurt. If this killing intent leaked, they would be instantly exposed. The wrath of divine venerate Brahma causes immortal blood to infect the Starry River. Those who come have destiny. Life and death are decided by just a thought. Just at this moment, the entire palace vibrated. Long Chen's mouth was open, but what came out was the heaven-merging stone spirit's terrifying voice. As soon as Long Chen opened his mouth, Bai Shirshir and the others jumped in shock. It was actually the voice of the heaven-merging stone spirit. His voice shook the entire palace. Although he didn't release any divine pressure, just his voice was shocking enough. Long Chen had long since discussed it with the giants so that the latter would cooperate with him. And in order to thank Long Chen for his favor, the giant immediately agreed. As a result, even Long Chen's people jumped in shock. Welcome. You are the 3rd group of invaders. There's no need to hide the truth. I can sense the aura of divine venerate Brahma on your bodies. Enter, said Long Chen. A group of people walked in. Just as they walked in, the place Long Chen was hidden suddenly became transparent. Bai Shirshir and the others then jumped in shock, thinking that those people could now see them. However, this was actually the heaven-merging stone spirit sharing his vision with them, allowing them to see what was happening outside, while those people couldn't see them. That group of people walked in with stunned expressions. They looked around nervously, trying to find the source of that voice. Their attention then landed on the corpses on the ground. Amongst that group, Long Chen saw several figures. He saw Chunyang, Zhao Wujing, Xie Tianyu, as well as the square-faced Lu Chunyang from the 9 Cauldron Church that Bai Shirshir had given a beating last time. He also saw 2 other new faces, 1 man and 1 woman. The man was slender like a stick of bamboo. It seemed that he lacked any meat on his bones. Even when he walked, it was as if a gust of wind would blow him away. He was like a moving corpse. Not only was his body strange, but his face was also ugly. His face was covered in pockmarks, like a steamed bun covered in sesame seeds. He had triangular eyes and a large bucktooth. It was a face that made people not want to get a second look. As for the woman, she was tall with long hair and had a wooden staff in her hand. Originally, she could only be considered average in looks, but standing beside that man, she appeared much more brilliant. Long Chen smiled faintly. That man was Amethyst Heart Island's #1 expert, Lu Zihao. As for the woman, she was the granddaughter of the leader of the Silver Moon City, the #1 expert of the Silver Moon City's junior generation, the one who called herself the beautiful Lotus Fairy, Jin Malian. The golden bell gates Zhao Wujing, the clear river palaces Xie Tianyu, the 9 cauldron churches Lu Chunyang, the amethyst heart islands Lu Zihao, the silver moon cities Zhenmalian. The top figures of the 5 powers had all gathered. Ignorant junior, you dare to hide in front of this lord? Are you courting death? Demanded Long Chen coldly. Space twisted. The black-robed expert of the Bloodkill Hall revealed himself and hastily bowed. Junior was ignorant. Please forgive this offense. Zhao Wujing and the others were quivering in fear. They saw the countless terrifying corpses on the ground, and the voice of the heaven-merging stone spirit made them quake. This time, it finally realized that the voice wasn't coming from the corpses. Instead, it came from that giant statue. This lord has been standing guard here for millennia. I didn't expect the divine venerate's followers to come. Good, very good. Long Chen was very pleased by their quivering states. The heaven-merging stone spirit was truly a convenient existence to have around. Senior, you said that we are the 3rd group of invaders. What happened to the previous 2 groups? Probed Chunyang cautiously. Long Chen looked at Chunyang and his heart clenched. He definitely saw a trace of doubt in his eyes. It seemed that he wasn't as stunned as the others. Did he know something? He replied, they were already executed by this lord. Executed? Zhao Wujing and the others were stunned. Long Chen indifferently sighed. This lord has been here for countless years, just to wipe out the disciples returning to the Starry River sect in search of treasures. If I didn't see that you had Lord Brahma's aura around many of them, I'd have long since killed you. Lord Brahma was a supreme existence even amongst gods. No one knew how old he was. However, Long Chen had a feeling that the Starry River sect was very likely implicated by its connection to the 9-star hegemon body art, resulting in its destruction. Although he couldn't say anything for sure, Chunyang and the others were Lord Brahma's followers. For Long Chen to feign himself to be also one of Lord Brahma's subordinates would make it easier to gain their trust. Senior, is Bai Shishir's corpse still present? Probed Chunyang again. You speak of that white-robed girl with the metal energy? The pretty one? Asked Long Chen. Yes, sir. Do you still have her corpse? The divine venerate ordered us to kill her. We need to bring back her corpse, said Chunyang hastily. Long Chen rubbed his jaw and smiled. That girl was quite pretty. This lord might be a spiritual body, but I took a liking to her. I wanted her as a servant girl. Long Chen suddenly felt a sharp pain on his waist, and a hand was viciously pinching him. That hand looked weak yet was as hard as iron. He almost cried out. Bai Shishir was glaring at Long Chen and refused to let go. Clearly, she was not going to permit him to continue talking nonsense. Who knew whether he was going to say something even worse? Long Chen hastily raised his hands in surrender and swallowed his shout. What a pity, but that girl was too stubborn and refused to surrender. I could only kill her along with the rest. She has already been turned to dust. Only then did Bai Shishir pull back her hand. Long Chen examined his waist and saw that the spot that she had pinched was already purple. He glared at her. Despite his tough physical body, this body that would not lose out to a spirit item had still been turned into this state. Bai Shishir's techniques were truly vicious. Bai Shishir cast a sideways glance at Long Chen's angry glare and acted like nothing had happened. What about that one called Long Chen? Asked Chunyang. Are you an idiot? How would I know which one is Long Chen? I already said I killed them all. Are you deaf? Or do you want this lord to kill you with them? Roared Long Chen. This roar shook the entire palace. Chunyang and the others quaked and stumbled, and blood gushed out of their ears. Their faces turned green. They were still unclear on what this existence was. It seemed to be some terrifying figure with a deep connection to Lord Brahma. But why would this existence suddenly unleash such an explosive temper on them? Seeing Long Chen angry and those experts outside shaking, Bai Shishir covered her mouth and laughed silently. Even Luo Bing and the others were shaking. Their previous nerves vanished. A pack of fools. If you weren't divine venerate Brahma's followers, this lord would have killed you instead of leaving the heaven-merging divine elixir to you, scolded Long Chen. Heaven-merging divine elixir? Chunyang and the others were surprised. Come over here. This lord will bless you with divine elixir. Long Chen indicated for Bai Shishir and the others to turn around. At first they didn't understand, but when they saw him starting to untie his pants, they immediately turned red and fled as far as they could. This vulgar bastard. Bai Shishir cursed inside. But at the same time, she surprisingly felt immense sympathy for Zhao Wujing and the others. Hearing that this terrifying existence was bestowing them with heaven-merging divine elixir, Chunyang and the others were overjoyed. They all prostrated themselves towards the statue, waiting for it to fall. Just at this moment, from there the statue's hands were clasped together in a seal, drops of dark yellow liquid slowly fell. This liquid emitted a strong medicinal scent. Upon seeing this, Zhao Wujing and the others hastily received it with their hands. Every person gets 10 drops. Don't fight over it, rumbled Long Chen as he tightened his belt once more. He kicked the medicinal ball in front of him forward. There was a small hole in front of Long Chen that led to the hands of the statue. This was a stone statue, and the heaven-merging stone spirit was easily capable of changing its shape. It went without saying that the heaven-merging stone spirit truly listened to Long Chen. Hearing that they were getting 10 drops, Chunyang and the others were delighted. They took out jade bottles to store them. But in reality, every person ended up getting more than 30 drops. Many thanks, great senior, cried out Chunyang. There's no need for thanks. I am one of the divine venerate subordinates, Divine General Huyo. This heaven-merging divine elixir is something I condensed from the essence of the world with the Starry River Sect's karmic luck. It possesses the almighty power to bring you closer to the heavens. It can give a dead person life, extend your longevity, nourish yin and strengthen yang, activate all your meridians. This was clearly his piss mixed with some medicinal powders. Hearing him call it some almighty divine elixir, Bai Shishir and the others almost couldn't hold back their laughter. Our meeting is destiny. As we work for the divine venerate, there's no need to be courteous. Drink it while it's hot, urged Long Chen. While it's hot? Chunyang and the others were a bit surprised. They didn't understand what that meant, but they drank the divine elixir. When they drank it, their expressions twitched. They frowned. The flavor was a bit strange. They glanced at each other, but no one dared to say anything. The divine elixir will activate your latent talent over the next hour and refresh your spirit, essence, and qi. Prepare yourselves to attack your bottlenecks. With your current cultivation bases, you will advance at least 3 levels, said Long Chen. Hearing that it had such a terrifying effect, Chunyang and the others immediately sat cross-legged and prepared to welcome the medicinal effect. Seeing them acting so seriously, Zhongling and the others almost couldn't hold back. They covered their mouths with their hands, refusing to let their laughter escape. Bai Shishir looked at Long Chen's back speechlessly. This fellow was practically a devil. He was absolutely evil. If Chunyang and the others realized what was happening, they would probably go insane. This was even worse than killing them. However, even after an hour passed, the medicinal effect didn't appear. It didn't appear even after 2 hours. After 6 hours, Chunyang and the others were feeling that someone was off. But just at that moment, the jade plate on Long Chen's waist shook. Long Chen smiled. Bai Xiaola had arrived. Fine, it seems that the divine elixir was linked to the Starry River Sect's karmic luck. Too much time has passed, so its effect is lacking. But this lord won't be selfish with you. I'll give you all this divine elixir. If there's still no effect, then this lord also has nothing else. Long Chen waved his hand to Li Kai and the others. All the men immediately ran over. Bai Shishir and the others hastily turned around. As for the rest, they knew without looking. The divine elixir streamed out like a small river, falling from the statue. A foul smell spread throughout the plaza. Chunyang and the others suddenly realized that something was off. This divine elixir didn't have any medicinal fragrance. They looked up to see that the statue was gradually growing clear. Then they saw Long Chen's bright smile that looked as if he had been blessed by the heavens. Long Chen! Chunyang roared furiously. Zhao Wujing, Xie Tianyu, Lu Chunyang, Zhen Meilian, Lu Zihao, and that assassin of the Bloodkill Hall all erupted with killing intent. Now is there enough divine elixir? Asked Long Chen. This time, it was his own voice. Long Chen, I'll tear you to pieces. Zhao Wujing roared and shot through the air, unleashing a punch at the statue. Boom. The statue exploded. Having lost the murals and its own defensive formation being out of energy, it had lost any defensive power. Chunyang and the others' faces were contorted. They had drunk that divine elixir. If that news spread, then there would be no need for them to continue living. Die. Lu Chunyang took out a warhammer and smashed it at Long Chen. Its runes flashed, emitting shocking pressure. This was a terrifying divine item. The other experts also charged over. They felt like they were going insane. They had never imagined that they were being tricked by Long Chen. That was because they were all followers of Lord Brahma. The Starry River sect and this world's destruction were related to Lord Brahma. Their powers knew a bit about the Jiuli Immortal land's history. Although they didn't know the full story, they likely knew that the Starry River sect was destroyed due to Lord Brahma's orders. Furthermore, the first impression was the strongest. Long Chen had used the heaven-merging stone spirit's voice to intimidate them. They really thought that some terrifying existence had been left here to make sure that no stragglers of the sect returned. The heaven-merging stone spirit's voice in particular was so mighty that it felt like that pressure could easily crush them. That was why they hadn't even considered that it was a trickster. They hadn't doubted that divine elixir at all when it fell. They directly drank it. Now that the truth was revealed, everyone come out and slaughter them, roared Xie Tianyu. Countless disciples poured out of the passageway. Chunyang waved his hand, and the prayer beads on his wrist glowed. Those corpses throughout the palace vanished as if they had been purified. Long Chen was startled. He looked at the prayer beads. He saw a figure carved into them. That was fallen Daynate. This was further evidence. Perhaps these devil kings were Lord Brahma or fallen Daynite's subordinates. Otherwise, with Chunyang's power, there was no way he dared to touch those corpses. After the corpses vanished, countless experts of the 5 powers filled the palace. The Heaven Female Alliance's disciples as well as the disciples led by Luo Bing and Mu Qingyun charged out. This was the mission that Long Chen gave them. They just needed to handle those extras. The rest was left to him and Bai Shirshir. Long Chen and Bai Shirshir faced off against those 7 experts. Lu Chunyang's attack was the first to arrive. His warhammer smashed towards Long Chen. This strike contained all of Lu Chunyang's killing intent and hatred. His hatred for Long Chen had already reached a level that couldn't be described with words. Why bother? I gave you my divine elixir, but you aren't even grateful. What thankless wretches. Long Chen sighed and shrugged his hands innocently. Boom. A golden sword struck Lu Chunyang's warhammer. It was Bai Shirshir who blocked it. The entire palace trembled from the exchange. Dust fell from the roof as if the palace might collapse at any moment. Even a defeated general dares to act tough? Let's have a battle to the death here. Bai Shirshir's white robes fluttered. Sword in hand, countless golden runes flowed around her. She was like a golden war goddess, noble and untouchable. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.